I think we're going to get started here right on time. We've got a packed agenda for the evening, so thank you all for being here. We're fortunate we've got Mr. John Garcia, who is from the Arizona Biomedical Research Center. He is the coordinator and director of that program here. So he's going to start us off with a little overview of the ABRC. So John, you're up.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be asked to kick off this afternoon's Northern Arizona University Research Education Workshop on translational research for healthy zones. Thank you all for joining us today, those virtually and those in person. I'm sorry I wasn't able to join you physically today. The program's agenda is packed full of delicious information, pun intended, on how to eat well and live a long, healthy life. The Arizona Biomedical Research Center is happy to sponsor this workshop. NAU has received several research education grants from the ABRC over the years and has not disappointed us in the quality of the programs hosted and provided. Under the leadership of Victor Waddell, PhD, Executive Director of the ABRC, and the Chief of the Arizona State Laboratory, this program falls under one of the three program areas of the ABRC. Through the Research Education Program, the ABRC provides funding for the state universities to host workshops, symposia, and conferences to help keep students, researchers, faculty, staff, and the citizenry abreast of the latest in biomedical research. Additionally, the ABRC provides grants to organizations and individuals to conduct cutting-edge biomedical research that will someday be translatable into the treatments and cures of tomorrow. Finally, the ABRC is host to the Arizona Public Cord Blood Program that strives to collect cord blood from a diverse population to save lives through transplantation of cord blood stem cells. To date, over 81 cord blood units have been used in transplant procedures. Tonight, we are going to take a moderately deep dive into the depths of blue zones. When Drs. Bob Trotter and Steve Palmer first pitched the idea of a program about the concept of blue zones, I had no idea what they were talking about. After my own cursory investigation, I learned that the fountain of youth and the secret of a long, happy life can be found in what and how we eat, how we connect with our community, family, and beliefs, how we move, and by having a good outlook on life. So let's reduce our consumption of sugar and red meat and increase our veggies and fish. Make family a priority. Take lots of hikes. Don't worry, be happy. And my favorite, drink red wine and take naps. I knew this was going to be a fun and informational workshop when I saw that we will spend much of the time talking about food. But before I give too much more away and accidentally steal anyone's thunder, I'll pass the ceremonial virtual baton over to Steve and the program organizers. Thank you and enjoy the workshop.
Hey, thanks so much, John. Appreciate that. And we really appreciate the ABRC support for bringing this series of workshops here to NAU. This is the first of 5 workshops that we're offering this year from NAU. So the upcoming workshops that we have, I'll just go through them really quickly. For more information, just look for additional emails sent to you since we have your email now, right? So let's see, this February, we're gonna have a workshop that's examining rural healthcare workforce challenges and successes. So that'll be in February. And then in March, we're gonna take a retroactive look at the COVID pandemic from a genomic as well as a media and communications perspective. And that's gonna be a fascinating one. The third one, or the fourth one we've got will be on community engagement and a collective approach to action in border regions. That workshop will be in May. We're going to host that one down in Yuma with Amanda Aguirre, who's a past state senator. And then in June, we're going to examine the whole school, whole community, whole child approach to supporting children. So that's what's on the docket for the rest of this year, but we're fortunate and grateful for you all being here tonight for our first event, which is looking at the healthy zones and the blue zones. So we're fortunate. I do want to acknowledge Dr. Bob Trotter, who's an emeritus professor here at NAU. He was PI on this on the ABRC education program here through NAU for the past 5 years. He's passed the baton on to me. So thank you, Bob, for that. Once again, thanks to John Garcia. I want to give a shout out to Nick Beckett, who has been working his tail off to make sure things are running smoothly, as well as our tech team. But we're excited today for this workshop. That's focusing on translational research and success for healthy zones. We're fortunate to have Dr. Jay Sutliff, which many of you probably already know, and also Chef Mark Molinaro, who will be bringing out our healthy tastes throughout the evening, and it's as well as our tremendous speakers and panelists that you will meet here shortly. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Jay, who's the brains of this operation. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you. It was November 2005, and I was in my office on the campus of Chadron State College in western Nebraska, and a colleague of mine, Dr. Norma Neely, walked across the hallway to my office, and she said, "Have you seen this book, or this magazine by National Geographic, November 2005? She said, "I bought you a copy. The Secrets of Living Longer." And as I turned through the pages of this National Geographic, there's an article in here by Dan Buettner. And Dan Buettner and his brother were known to go across Africa several times. They've been exploring different places. And what they had done, they have gotten together with demographers, people who study demographics, birth and death records, and they're going around the world looking for the longest lived populations. And it's interesting that they featured in this article, they found a zone of people, a region of people living off the coast of Italy, right over here on this island called Sardinia. And this is the location in the world where men live to be the oldest with frequency, and I'm going to share the secret, men, why we might want to move to Sardinia, all right? And then I turned the pages, and the next zone they found was Okinawa, Japan. And I thought, well, that's interesting. What do these things have in common? Different genetic gene pools, things like that, because we always talk about genetics as our determining factor of health. Well, these people live very differently, and they also come from very different, diverse genetic gene pools. And then where do you think they found 3 of these zones of people back in early 2000? Where do you think, what country would you go to next to find the longest lived people with vitality? We're not talking about just living long lives in a nursing home with tube feedings and walkers. We're talking about vitality, because on the cover here, this guy's 87 years old. He's training for his annual triathlon, all right, in Okinawa, Japan, all right? Do you want to be doing that when you're 87? Okay, so we found it Sardinia, Italy. They found it in Okinawa, Japan. What country would you go to? What region of the world would you go to next? New Zealand. New Zealand. U.S. U.S. They came to the U.S., and where in the U.S. are you going to find people living with longevity? Arizona. Arizona. Loma Linda, California. All right? Now, it's interesting that soon after this came out, some researchers on our team, we drove over there, and I said, now watch for it. We're going to be driving across a blue line on the highway. We're going to be entering a blue zone. And I'm like, I'm kidding, because they're looking, where is this blue zone? And in fact, my wife was actually born in Loma Linda Sanitarium. That dates her a little bit. I'm not going to give her age away. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. So I found that very interesting. But what they did is they came up with a Venn diagram, and they said, what do these people have in common? Well, they found out that the Sardinians drink red wine, and of course they say in moderation, and then share the work burden with a spouse. And there's a hint right there why men live the longest. They're herders. They're sheep herders, and they leave the house, okay, and they go out with their sheep in the field and come back on the weekend, okay? Share the burden. Share the burden, man, all right? And then they eat the omega-3, the grass-fed milk and cheese products from the livestock. Okinawa, they keep lifelong friends, eat small portions, and they find a purpose. You know, we have so many seminars on what to eat, what not to eat. Eat this, don't eat that. We talk about exercise, but look at this. We're going way beyond those obvious things of diet and exercise, but then we look at the group of Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California. They eat nuts and beans, okay? They observe the Sabbath, so they take an entire day off and relax and unplug, and they have faith. But then they took together all of these three zones, and they said the things they have in common, that they don't smoke, they have the family first, they're active every day, keep socially engaged, eat fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And I thought, well, interesting, that's kind of my lifestyle. Okay, now I have some evidence. Like, you got to have some support to talk about what you do, right? You can't, you're like, who's this quack, right? So I started studying it more, and then lo and behold, a few years later, this book came out by Dan Buettner, and they called it the Blue Zones. So these are, and I thought, well, where did they come up with that word Blue Zones? Where I come from in the Midwest, aging women, okay, tend to color their hair, right? Right? Do you remember this? And they call them the blues because that gray hair kind of turns blue. And I thought, well, maybe that's the blue zones with the blue tinted hair. Well, no, it's actually about the demographers would put these big maps up on the wall, and they get a blue felt tip marker, and they would circle on the map areas of clustered people where they were living to be centenarians, living to be 100 with vitality, and that was the blue zones. But the interesting thing is, in this book, they discovered 9, the power 9. And that's what we're going to introduce you to tonight. We're going to have different speakers take different quadrants. There's the move quadrant. There's the right outlet quadrant. There's the eat wisely, and we're going to feed some food tonight, okay? We're not going to feed you. We're going to actually get to taste the food. We've been getting schooled. Us meatheads, us athletes, we're always about fueling up and eating lots of food and going to the all-you-can-eat buffet, right? This is talking about tasting and actually experiencing the food, because food is really a sacred item. Okay, coming from the earth and into our bodies where we came from. And then look at this. The last quadrant over here is the connect. 9, in the power 9, those are the principles we're going to talk about tonight. But the interesting thing is, it's not only 3 now. They've discovered another blue zone down in Costa Rica. Okay, another genetically diverse group of people, right? Think about some similarities here, but they all seem to be in warmer climates. All right, just going to leave that out there. There's usually some water nearby for all of these people. And then they found the 5th blue zone in Greece, on an island called Icaria, Greece, right over here, okay? So those are the 5 blue zones that exist right now. And then I got to thinking, wouldn't it be interesting to be able to create a blue zone? Well, the blue zones created a company, and they went around, and they first went to Albert Lea, Minnesota. Okay, well, there's lakes, 10,000 lakes in Minnesota, okay? And what they did is they went in and they tried to create a blue zone, bring the power 9 into the community, and they started seeing, look at reduction in healthcare claims by 49%, increased lifespan and expectancy by 3 years. Now, doctor, if you could prescribe a medication for that, right, we would be retiring, right? Yeah. So they started going around with communities, and they went to the beach cities in California. They went to Iowa. The governor of Iowa got on board, and they tried to make Iowa, the whole state, a blue zone. And then they went to Fort Worth, Texas. So I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to get together? And we moved here in 2011. My wife and I moved to Flagstaff, and I met up with Dr. Palmer, and I said, Steve, we got to make Flagstaff a blue zone. How do we do that? And I went and I found out you had to have mayor, city council, $2 million budget. And I said, well, that doesn't look too promising for me, okay? I looked at my bank account. And so what I did is I met with Dr. Trotter, and he told me, you know what he told me when I told him all this stuff? He says, all you've been talking about is barriers. So I thought, let's get to work. So you know what I started doing? I started embedding the blue zones into my classes here at NAU and teaching my students. We have a class called Global Nutrition and Foods. We use the Blue Zones cookbook. the Blue Zones Kitchen. We teach students how to cook for these different regions so that when they get out and become professionals, they can bring these principles in as well. And then we started teaming up with the Northern Arizona University Employee Assistance and Wellness Program, and we started doing what we call interventions. They're basically workshops and seminars, and we would do blood draws before and after. And we started publishing this material and showing what we were doing here. And then we teamed up with Northern Arizona Healthcare and Michelle Gorman and her wellness team there. So we started doing this with our employees, and maybe some of you have been in some of those, quote unquote, you've been intervened on, okay? And we started intervening with Blue Zone principles, and we started publishing this in peer-reviewed articles in journals. Okay? Now, I bet everybody in here has read these journal articles. Probably not, okay? That's why Dan Buettner went right to the lay books, okay? So we're in the process right now of maybe coming up with our own lay types of things. So we started doing this research, publishing it. Blue Cross Blue Shield started funding us with our grant projects. They started funding our projects because they're the main insurer of our employees at Northern Arizona Healthcare and NAU reduced healthcare costs. And then we looked at a 12-week program. We did a 6-week, we did a 12-week, we did a 9-week, looking for that magic number of how many weeks. But it's interesting, as long as people are following a program, they do well. The minute you stop intervening, what do you guys do? What do we do as human beings? When we get our hand held and we have to show up and sign up, we're accountable, right? But what we started thinking about is we need to do a broader outlook and really start looking at how could we actually do this as a community. So then I started scaling it back, thinking, well, how about if we just make the campus a Blue Zone? How do we start there? So we started looking around, and in the meantime, 2 graduate students came to me, Valerie Seaton here on the left and Sierra Heath. They were graduate students, and they said, we need to do a Blue Zone intervention, and we need to do it in early 2020. Oh boy. Okay. So we ended up doing it virtually. My kitchen, my wife and I have a kitchen right here, and we brought in a recording, we made it into a recording studio. We did a virtual 8-week intervention for employees using the Blue Zones principles, okay? During the pandemic, and we moved it to April of 2021, and subsequently we have one publication from there. Again, you guys read that, right? You found that in the journal articles, things like that. So what we started realizing is people do well if they have the support. How can we broaden this thing and make it better? So I started doing a Flagstaff plant-based lifestyle community meetup. Every month we meet once a month and basically do that. But this is only the nutrition part because I'm a dietitian. Okay, I also have a degree in public health, but we need to do this as a community-wide and get the faith-based people in there. We need to get the medical providers involved and things like this. So what we started doing is we had the momentum going, and right now we're in the process of doing a quote-unquote intervention, okay, with the Twin Arrows employees at the Twin Arrows Casino. It's funded by the National Institute of Health. Again, we're going to be publishing articles in there that you'll be happily reading in all the journals. But really what it does is it moves the momentum. And what it does is it moves the momentum. And then I received an invitation to go to South Phoenix on March 28th, 2022. What were they doing in South Phoenix? How many of you know anything about South Phoenix? Know much about, tell me what's the makeup of the community in South Phoenix? Diverse. Challenged, right? They are working with the Blue Zones Activate South Phoenix project. Can you imagine how stoked I was to see if you can do it in Phoenix, South Phoenix, can we do it in Flagstaff? Can we do it in Yuma? Okay? Can we do it in Show Low? Can we do it over in Kingman? And so forth and things like that. But then I became a groupie, okay? Dan Buettner, I finally met Dan Buettner, okay? Got the cookbook signed. I became like at a concert when you, or you see your favorite athlete. There I am, a groupie, okay? This happened in March, and this momentum keeps building to go across Arizona with the Blue Zones project. So then when I was given the opportunity to put this together, I started digging further into it, and I started realizing when you start doing the planning and the research, you start having experts in the community, it can be done. I lost my focus of the bigger thing, and we're just doing the employees here. We can do this, folks. We can do this, and that's what this is, a next step. And so we're bringing people together because it's really about people. It's about the places we live and creating policies and an environment that can help people facilitate change and actually maintain that long term. So that's what tonight is all about. So we're gonna talk about the Power 9, okay? We're gonna start out by feeding you some food in just a few seconds. We have chefs Mark Molinaro and Chloe Sutliff and their team ready to go. And you can see, if you have food allergies, you can read the menu items in here and what foods to avoid if you have allergenic foods or if you have foods that don't fit well with your system, okay? They're in the handout. We're gonna start with that sweat shooter, okay? We're gonna Elexir, okay? We're going to start with that. Next, we're going to go with Dr. Lori Perrin. She's going to talk about how to move, how to have the right outlook, have purpose in life, downshift. And then we're going to shift gears. We're going to go to Pastor Landon Merrill, and he's going to talk about this whole connecting piece over here, this quadrant, okay? And then we're going to close out the night with a Healthy Zones panel where we're going to have interactive discussion with other people from outside Flagstaff, in Flagstaff. They're going to show us what they're doing so we can help build this momentum to keep this thing rolling along. So let's turn it over. And Chef Mark, you want to come in and tell us about what we're going to serve first? What's the first item?
Thank you, Jay. And I'm dangerous with a microphone. I will just forewarn you, I love microphones, just like Tila. Well, hello. As you can tell, I teach for NAU. I teach calculus. And so what you're getting right now is, I'm just going to forewarn you, this may not be super pleasurable because it's really, what this piece is it's about understanding what food does for you. It's about understanding ingredients, and what you're drinking right now is called an immune shooter. And maybe you're familiar with these. But we didn't make them too hot, but it's fresh ginger juice, fresh turmeric juice, cinnamon, black pepper, organic Manuka honey, and lemon juice and hot water. So this is like, let's have this for lunch. You know, you may not choose this. But the point of what you're having right now is that food can also be medicine. It can be used in ways in which we understand how it works, and it can do things to our body. It's not just to taste good. It's not just to feel good, right? It has a purpose. So really what we're trying to show you with this introductory shooter is that, I love the pinkies out. It's so fabulous. All the way. But to really understand that in this grand picture of what you saw up here, all the different areas, is that food has a place in connecting people, but it also has a place in how you steward your body. And it's really important to connect with your ingredients, right? And if you are half awake and understand how our agricultural system works in the United States, we have a lot of work to do, right? We're producing in mass, especially if you're very health conscious and you work out a lot, Glenn, right? Like it's you, but I imagine you think very differently about what you're going to put inside your body than someone who doesn't really think that way. And one of the things we're trying to teach our students is that the work we do in the kitchen, people put in their mouth and they swallow. And it becomes part of their biological structure. And when you cook, we need to really understand that and have a lot of reverence and respect for the work we're doing, because it becomes part of who you are. So this course is really just to talk a little bit about how ingredients have a function beyond just taste. But hopefully you're feeling a little something inside now, maybe a little bit of warmth. And so there's your first course. We're going to head back now and prepare our second course.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So if you come up with some, if you have questions tonight, there's definitely going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions or interact, or actually, I know someone in here specifically who's been to one of the blue zones. Has anybody ever been to any of these blue zones? Okinawa? Tony, where have you been? Loma Linda? You've been to the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica? Okay. Sardinia, Italy? You've been to Sardinia. How about Icaria, Greece? Okay, Okinawa, Japan. Okay, so tonight, we're gonna go and we're gonna look at moving naturally. Now, a lot of the Blue Zones people did not join gyms or they're not power lifters, okay? Now, some of them might be, all right? But the idea is not that you don't have to like do this CrossFit thing or something like that. It's how does it fit to your lifestyle? And it's a balance, it's a synergistic balance between the food, the body, the spirit, and the whole bit. So we're gonna turn it over to Dr. Lori Perrin, and she's gonna tell you about her professional background, and she's gonna talk about the right outlook and about moving naturally. Go ahead.
Okay, you're wearing a blue shirt.
Yeah.
And are you in the blue bubble?
Yeah, see, did you pick up on the symbolic shirt, the blue? Okay, all right, somebody's awake. That's before the shooter, right?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So my name's Lori Perrin. Thank you very much for having me. So I am an obstetrician gynecologist, and I've been in private practice in Flagstaff for about 20 years. So for any of you males especially who think I'm about to talk about vaginas or babies, have no fear. That is not what I am talking about this evening. So I'm not here with my OBGYN hat on. I'm here with another hat that I've put on over the last few years, something that when we get to talking about purpose, it's become very near and dear to my heart, to the point where I actually started an entire business around it. And it's called Slow and Steady 360, and it's essentially a lifestyle program where we talk about different habits, kind of like the Blue Zones, that can help us with regard to aging gracefully and longevity. So, a quick little diversion into my personal life. And just actually into the science part first. So I don't know about many of you guys, but when I think about longevity, kind of like Jay mentioned, I pretty much think about genetics. And when I think about genetics, on a personal note, I sort of feel like I won the genetic jackpot. Here's a picture of me a couple weeks ago with my cousin. She's my mom's first cousin, so my first cousin once removed. Adele Abrahams, and this is taken in Scottsdale, and she turned 100 on October 19th. I know. Pretty cool, and pretty cool that myself and a number of people on my maternal side, all of our ages are on our bodies, we were all there to celebrate with her, so pretty amazing. And the truth is that when we talk about genetics, you know, I have to say that for myself, especially in my medical training and in medical school and residency and even in my adulthood, really until I became a parent, I have to be honest, I sort of relied on my genetics. My lifestyle was not all that great. I kind of joke, although it's not that far from the truth, that my favorite food groups in medical school were barbecue potato chips, Twizzlers, red licorice, Diet Coke, up to a 6-pack a day, no lie, and peanut M&Ms. I had to get the protein in there, so went with the peanut M&Ms. I used to like plain, but I realized I need the protein. So and as I became an OBGYN and a mom in my mid-30s, I wasn't doing a ton of exercising. I got to run with some girlfriends here and there, and I did a yoga class here and there. But really, my lifestyle was not one fit for that in and of itself would help me with aging. I really relied on my genetics. So as I got a little bit older and I started to learn a little bit more about aging, lo and behold, what percentage do you think genetics actually plays a role in aging? Anyone have an idea? 10%. 25. Though when I heard that, I was like, uh-oh. I might have just kind of not really done a lot of good stuff for myself. So my first question is, okay, if that's 25, what's the other 75%? Epigenetics. So this is a field of study that is exploding right now in all countries, really. So epi meaning on top of, so literally on top of your genetics. And so what are the epigenetics? What is the study of epigenetics? And essentially, the study of epigenetics is where it takes our environment, our lifestyle, and things like where we live, what we eat, when we eat, how we move our bodies, how we think, how we feel, how we connect, our faith, our purpose. And what's been amazing to find is that things that we do in our life, in our lifestyle, they change our DNA. And they actually enact changes in our DNA that can promote or detract from aging and longevity. Okay, how does this all tie in? I know you guys are like, what is she talking about? Blue zones. Okay, so the blue zones effectively are a study on epigenetics, because really, as Jay said, you have this genetically, these homogeneous groups in these areas. So you can say, okay, if you're just studying Okinawa, Japan, fabulous. You can look at all of that, and you can look at their lifestyle, but they're probably all living in the same region, probably fairly genetically similar. Okay, well, how does that tie in with somewhere in Costa Rica? Or how does that tie into Loma Linda, California? So what they found is they're putting together a lot of these attributes. And I was going to go into a little bit of stuff like Dan did. So essentially blue zones. I guess one question I have is, how many people before they signed up for this talk ever heard of a blue zone before? Okay, that's kind of what I expected. I think about a third. Fascinating. So, and really, my whole study through Slow and Steady is what got me interested in it. So Dan Buettner, photographer for National Geographic, I used the year 2000, essentially he was traveling the world, started noticing people living into their 100s, and got a team of people together, demographers and scientists and researchers and sociologists, and they started to come up with these different regions. And as Jay said, part of my spiel too is that they ended up putting this map up and circling these areas with big blue pens and finding out what these regions have in common. And so 5 blue zones. So also, I'm sorry I'm repeating stuff a little bit, but to me, when I look at the first 4, I'm sort of like, makes sense. And for me, I actually thought the blue was, I look at all these regions and I see blue, ocean, and sky, and I think, oh, blue zone. I had no idea about the blue felt tip marker until I read a little bit more into it. And also, similarly to what Jay was saying, the first 4 sort of make sense to me. They're sort of like paradise, How on earth is a place in our country considered a blue zone? Seriously. I mean, really, I was floored. So, it's really the Seventh-day Adventists. There's a huge population of Seventh-day Adventists that live in Loma Linda, California. Quick note, one of my first jobs, real jobs in college, was I ended up working at a Seventh-day Adventist hospital in their emergency department as a tech. And I learned so much. I'm Jewish. They essentially keep kosher. I had no idea. So many of their lifestyle habits that come from their religious beliefs are really part of the blue zones. They don't eat a lot of red meat. They don't eat pork. They don't drink alcohol. They don't imbibe caffeine. They don't eat a lot of refined sugars. Their faith is very strong and their family values are very strong. And people in their community live into their 100s very naturally. The other thing I want to state about the whole blue zones, and is also similar to what Jay said, is these people are not living into their 100s. They're not in nursing home. When Dan Buettner was out traveling, he was interacting with people in their 100s. They're not in nursing homes. They were not in memory wards. They were vital parts of their community. They were living in their homes with their family, multi-generational families living in one home. They were participating in the activities of their community. And so it really is, to me, just fascinating that we can start to learn some of these things and we can actually enact some of these changes in ourselves, that we too can live longer, healthier, and so that we can also be active parts of our community. Okay, so we're going to go into the Power 9. So, find my place here. Okay, so I'm going to start tonight with talking about 3 of these Power 9 concepts. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to introduce the concept. We're going to talk about how it's utilized in the blue zones, and then we're going to ask ourselves a question. If I'm trying to make a healthy zone, what can I do? How can I bring these into my life? So, moving naturally, we'll start there. Okay, when we talk about moving naturally, essentially, what's notable about exercise in the blue zones is they're not going to gyms. They're not spending 3 hours in the gym. They're not running marathons. They're not power weightlifters. They're sheep herders. They're gardeners. They're farmers. They're lifting. They're moving. They're pushing. They're pulling. They're getting down on the ground. They're walking to the store. They're carrying their groceries back. They're carrying their grandchildren. They're going upstairs. They're just doing all of these things naturally. They're not sitting at a computer. They're not watching tons of TV. They're outside. They're with their communities. They're connecting. Here's something that came up while I was working on this last week. This is an Instagram post from the Blue Zones. So pretty interesting, dancing, taking the stairs, walking to your local coffee shop, doing 10 walking lunges, calling a friend while you go for a walk. To me, some of these are great because they're combining a couple different ones. That connection while you're moving your body is huge. I love the last one, making sourdough bread. Just the thought of like kneading that bread, you know, and you can see it, you're working. So it's fascinating. All right, so in creating my own Blue Zone, what can I do? Obviously, we can walk. We can park farther from the front door. We can take the stairs. We can bike. Our city especially is fabulous for biking, and I feel like our city does a great job of promoting that. The next one, sweep, shovel, and rake. I think of this and I think of Roomba, snow blower, and leaf blower. Okay, seriously, so don't please, I mean, when there's 12 inches of snow, we love our snow blower. But to be honest, the last few years when we've gotten these little 3 to 6 inches, my husband and I are out there and we're shoveling and we're sort of laughing. Number one, it's not that hard. You're out in the fresh air and you're moving your body. You're lifting, you're moving, you're twisting. These are all such important things for us to be doing on a daily basis. One of the things I also have learned in my research about all of this is the key for getting on and off the floor. You know, Okinawans, they sit down on the floor when they eat. A lot of, in these areas, because it's multi-generational, a lot of the times the grandparents are taking care of the grandchildren while the parents are out working. So when you're taking care of little kids, you know, right? You're on the floor, you're off the floor, you're taking walks, you're moving, you're doing all of this stuff. And the ability to get yourself on and off the floor is actually very much can determine or detect how long you will live. Okay, purpose and the right outlook. I feel like you guys chose me for this because you know these ones are very near and dear to my heart. Okay, in Okinawa, they call it ikigai. In Costa Rica, they say plan de vida. Essentially, the same thing. What's my purpose? Why do I wake up in the morning? It's been shown that people who have a purpose in life actually live, on average, 5 to 7 years longer. So for me, I have this picture here very purposely because it shows two of my purposes. For me, when I was younger, I don't know, for about the last 30, 34 years, I'm 54, I wanted to be a physician. I wanted to take care of women in their reproductive life especially. And funny little story is when I grew up, I went to a girls' overnight camp for about 8 years, and I've stayed very much in touch with my camp friends. And when I was in medical school, I was talking to one of my camp friends, and she was asking me what discipline of medicine I was going to go into. And I was like, I don't know, I'm sort of thinking OBGYN, but I'm not sure, the lifestyle. And she's like, Laura, you have to go into OBGYN. And I was like, I do? Why? She said, well, when we were all 12 and 13, you were the one who taught us to put in tampons. I did? I don't remember. But clearly, I think it was something from when I was really young, that attachment I had to taking care of women, to helping women, helping them understand their bodies. And then delivering babies has been nothing short of the most amazing thing in my entire life. So I feel very fortunate to have very early on found a purpose in something that I really attached to. Over the last few years, I've sort of started to maneuver myself. I'm not quitting my obstetric practice any minute soon, but I am starting to shift. I'm starting to shift my purpose and my interest. And this slow and steady 360, this idea of aging gracefully and longevity has really become something that's become so near and dear to my heart. So I feel very fortunate to have started to morph into something else for my purpose for the next however many years. The other thing I think that I want to make sure is that, well, we'll go here, I guess. So in creating your own healthy zone, ask yourself, who am I? What's my purpose? Why do I wake up in the morning? It's really important for me to know, you know, I've talked about purpose here, and I've stood up here and I talked about two kind of career type things. Well, purpose doesn't have to be a career base. To me, purpose is anything that you feel passionate about. To me, also, the right outlook is also where this comes in. With the right outlook, with a positive outlook, you can take something that's an interest and it can very quickly become a purpose, literally with positive energy and focus. Who knows? Maybe your purpose right now is that you volunteer for an organization, for a cause that you feel really near and dear about. Maybe it is that you're taking care of your grandkids so that your kids can not have to pay a babysitter and earn money and save money. Maybe you're an artist and you're creating art and you're creating beauty, and your purpose is through sharing that with other people. Purpose has no boundaries. If you ask me, living with a purpose saves your life. And now, scientifically, we know it adds years onto our lives. So if you're not sure how to answer these questions, I encourage you to take some time and think about it. I have a feeling you're going to learn a lot about yourself when you do. Okay, so if you haven't figured out yet, I'm pretty much an optimist. And again, another Blue Zone Instagram post, staying positive. And just, to me, you know, one of my mottos is if you don't dream, it's not going to happen. So the most that you can stay positive, and it's amazing to see that they're literally doing studies to show a positive attitude can add years onto your life. Fascinating. Okay, lastly, we're going to talk about downshifting. Admittingly, this has both been the hardest one for me to adopt, but the most rewarding. I'm going to take a second and a shout out to my husband, Jason, because without him, I don't think I would really understand the concept of downshifting. It's really been, I think, one of his life goals in the last few years to help me understand how important that is in life. And I am forever grateful, because it truly is one of the most powerful concepts that we can adopt if we're kind of trying to work on balance, aging gracefully, and longevity. When I first think of downshifting, I don't know about you guys, but I sort of thought about meditating. And I've tried to meditate a number of times back in my life. And to be honest, I would probably sit for about 3 minutes with my eyes closed. And if I had been on call last night, I either fall asleep or I have monkey mind, and my mind's going all over the place. And after about 3 minutes, I hop up and run to my to-do list and write the 5 things down that I just thought about while I was trying to meditate. And I thought, there's no way I can't do this, okay? But what I realized is that you don't have to go to the mountain and meditate 45 minutes every day. That is not what you have to do to downshift. Downshifting can come in so many other forms. So again, I'm gonna ask you guys the question. If you're gonna create a healthy zone, how can you downshift? So many ways that we can do this. Stimulating your vagus nerve. So our vagus nerve is part of that autonomic nervous system, opposite from our fight or flight, and it helps decrease our heart rate. Decreasing our heart rate, taking 5 deep breaths, that can be a way of downshifting. That alone, resting your gut, eating the right foods, minimizing sugar intake, minimizing processed food, practicing yoga, meditation, mindfulness. A little bit of mindfulness every day can be just a way to downshift. The other thing is connect, dance, sing, laugh. All of these things are going to help you bring that fight or flight, that stress level, that cortisol level way down. So, again, I ask you, please think about in your own lives what you can do to downshift. Okay, I'm going to close here, circle back around to Slow and Steady 360, because this really has been part of my large inspiration over the past 3 years. The notion for me is that we all have the tools we need to create our own healthy zone. It's fascinating, and it's so exciting to me that we actually have the power to do that. This is a slide where if you'd like to have any interest and connect with me about slowandsteady.com, you're welcome to take a picture of this. This is my website. You can be involved in many ways. Any way that you connect with me, if I get an email from me and you hit reply, I will answer you, I promise. I would love to have any and all of you involved on any level. More than anything, I want to leave you with the notion that anything is possible if you believe in it. And remember, slow and steady wins the race. Did you want me to do questions now? Okay, so if anybody has any questions, I think I can be up here for another few minutes. Happy to field them.
Questions for Dr. Perrin?
Oh, no.
Husband.
When the husband wants to ask the first question, this is not a good scene.
Can you tell us a little more about the vagus nerve and the different ways to stimulate it?
It's not Las Vegas nerve. Just to be clear, it's not, I tell my students that.
Right,
We're
it's not
talking
Las Vegas.
here.
Well, I think on the list, I think, you know, breathing. Probably one of the biggest ways is you can stimulate your vagus nerve is to breathe. So, you know, if we go into the nervous systems, your sympathetic nervous system and your autonomic nervous system, sympathetic is that fight or flight. Your autonomic nervous system is really, it's the stuff that happens behind the scenes that you don't even realize. It's how your heart's beating. It's how your gut's moving or not moving. And so, yeah, things like taking deep breaths, meditating. Resting your gut is a big one that actually stimulates your vagus nerve. When we fast, you know, we all have this idea of when we sleep, you know, we sleep and our brains rest and our bodies kind of rejuvenate. And for the most part, we get up in the morning and we eat, and then we eat pretty much till we go to sleep. And what we've learned is that if you can narrow that window of your eating window, that it has a lot of benefits for your gut and actually stimulates that vagus nerve as well and helps bring all of your functions to a place where it's much more calm and restful and relaxed. Yes.
So to gear down for
Yes.
everybody who maybe like you and just keeps going. You talked about you're Jewish.
Yeah.
And do you recognize like taking a Sabbath? Do you do that sometimes? And then if so, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I would call myself a cultural Jew more than a religious. I definitely practice some of the traditions for Judaism. I don't notoriously celebrate Sabbath in the typical way. Typically what Jews, when they celebrate Sabbath, so for us, Sabbath is from Friday night at sundown until Saturday night at sundown. And that's a time where, and Seventh-day Adventists actually do the very same thing, and they do Saturday, not Sunday, which I find really interesting because they're Christian. But Sabbath is a time where there's no work done, none. I have a sister-in-law who practices Orthodox, and literally they tape their light switches. They don't flush the toilet. There's nothing. You don't use energy. You don't exchange money. You don't get into a car. You don't do anything that requires any external connection or motivation. It's a time for you walk to and from synagogue. It's a time to spend with family. It's a time to cook, to eat, to convene, to connect. So no, I don't. I wish in a way I had something that I could. I think with call schedules and kids and life, I haven't done that, but I think it can be really valuable. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions for Dr. Perrin?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, so intermittent fasting. So, you know, there's so many ways that people do it. There's actually the way that I practice it and the way that we connect with it through Slow and Steady is actually something that's more called time-restricted eating. We call it intentional fueling, which is actually Chef Mark's name for intermittent fasting, which I have, he's allowed me to graciously adopt. I love you too. And so essentially, I kind of promote something like a 16-8 split, where you tend to narrow your eating window for about 8 hours, and then you allow your gut to rest for 16 hours. You can have liquids during that fasting time, really anything under 50 calories. I tend to drink black tea. My husband drinks coffee or tea. I put a little bit of unsweetened almond milk in there. But really, as long as it's under 50 calories, your body still recognizes that as fasting. And I'll tell you, you know, when people do intermittent fasting, they say about 85% of people feel like it's actually the most natural way that they want to eat. Most people say when they wake up, they're not really hungry. I know when kids growing up, we used to fight with a few of our kids who really didn't want to eat breakfast. And I remember being, especially on an exam day, you have to have protein, you have to have something. But the truth is that with intermittent fasting, by the time you get to the morning, your brain is actually burning ketone bodies instead of all the sugar and stored sugar. And ketone bodies is the preferred fuel for your brain. You actually think much clearer in a fasting state when you're utilizing ketone bodies. So I had to go back and apologize to my kids to say, sorry I made you eat. You probably would have done better on your test if you hadn't. Yeah.
And I was wondering what kind of diets support intermittent fasting the best, because I tried the Mediterranean diet,
Yeah.
and I found that I was like doing speed work after 14 hours, and you're not even hungry still, you know,
Right.
hitting the weight room after that. And
Right.
so there's different diets I feel like that support. If you have a heavy meat diet, I eat, you get hungry right away again.
Yeah.
You know, so there's different. And so I just wondered what your experience is and what.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So yeah, I think they're diet type, and I think most people, especially who study the Blue Zones, would tell you the Mediterranean diet. I think if you look at it, that's actually because of that coastal region and more of a pescatarian diet. I think that probably is the preferred diet, to be honest. And in terms of aging and longevity, we now know that the pescatarian diet, by far, even a little bit more, they used to say more of a vegetarian, but you need those omega fatty acids, you need those omega-3s that you get through the fish and seafood. So I agree with you. I think that, well, number one, I think that, at least from my experience personally and people that I've talked to, things with intermittent fasting kind of waxes and wanes. You know, there'll be some days where I'm sort of literally in my office and I have the handful of nuts at 10:59 and I'm like, I can't wait to eat these, you know? And other days, all of a sudden, it will be 2 o'clock and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm not even really all that hungry. And so I think, number one, to me, a lot of it's listening to your body and recognizing what your body is telling you. I do think when you eat a lot of carbs and a lot of sugar, that you're going to sort of blow through those and you're going to be starving. I think if you can get those complex carbohydrates, and that fiber is probably where it's at. You know, protein, fiber is really important in terms of when you do intermittent fasting. And so that's your vegetables and your fruit and your whole grains, your slow grains, not your quick grains that you kind of blow through really quickly. But absolutely, I believe that your diet makes a difference and can really add to your success in intermittent fasting. Anything else?
You'll have a chance, she'll be on the panel. Let's thank Dr. Perrin for her.
Thank you for having me.
So just a follow-up to that question, we've done 5 interventions here with the employees of NAU and the hospital, and we went and we told them to let their gut rest, okay? Go to bed on an empty stomach. Sounds like punishment, right? And the idea was, and we had over, I'd say 60% of the people participating had GERD, chronic gastroesophageal reflux disease, or heartburn. Basically eliminated it by going to bed on an empty stomach and not crowding your meals together. When I was studying in college, we were into this grazing, where you eat every couple hours. Well, we look like cows now. Okay, sorry, we gained a lot of weight. We look like cows because we're grazing like cows, right? We're not meant physiologically to be eating all the time. So spread it out. This intermittent fasting or time-restricted feeding, which I call it as well, okay, going to bed on an empty stomach, okay, and those types of things. So that's some of the stuff, so you don't have to read the journal articles that I've been mentioning. We basically eliminated heartburn. Okay, so we're going to switch, and I'm a nutritionist, so I always have to pick up on the food part. And one of the things in the Blue Zones is a plant slant, plant-dominant diet with the fiber in the microbiome in the gut. Okay, on to the next thing. Chef Mark, we are going to do another tasting now, and this is labeled our first bite. You've only been drinking so far. Yes. Now we're going to start eating.
Yes.
And tasting.
And it's plant forward.
Yes.
And I'll just say, Dr. Perrin, my beautiful wife, Christina, and we did the Slow and Steady 360, thank you. See, such a great wife. Did you see how lovingly she did that too? I mean,
Program's over.
thank you. But it was transformative, I think, for us to understand how our bodies work and get more in tune and in sync and in harmony with our cycles and things, because we were just kind of doing our own our best we could, and it wasn't easy at first. That first week was not great. It was hard, and our sugar fast and stuff. But it really, I think doing something like this really can help you understand how impactful what you do can alter your perspective on things. It's amazing. So, yeah, pleasure. And it was, this next one is, it's a plant-forward base. It's a Mediterranean-style grilled flatbread, and it has a Tuscan white bean puree on there. It's coming out right now. And thank you, Noah, Michelle. And so this is a slow ferment, so it's going to be a little gluten-reduced because it was not as needed as much. So even in the way you're making the doughs, you can kind of alter some of the way the products work together. But the base is a Mediterranean flatbread with Tuscan white beans, caramelized onions, toasted pine nuts, a little bit of lemon zest, micro arugula, and then Malden sea salt on there. So it's all ingredients that have meaning in the world beyond economy. And so that's kind of what this pizza is really trying to tell you, is that, when we select ingredients from the store, select ingredients that have value beyond the economy of something, right? If you're buying a bean, buy a bean that actually has some meaning, right? Rather than like a bean that's mass-produced by 13-year-olds in New Jersey somewhere. Buy something that is maybe a little bit more regional or local, right? It's going to have a different value for you. So like Yanni, when you're busting out with all the young kids and jamming on your drums, you're going to need some good protein, right? You need to stay fit. So this is also very plant forward, protein solid, using natural sugars, right? The caramelized onions, there's no sugar in this dish, but it probably has a sweet taste to it. But there's absolutely no sugar in there. It's all done by the technique, not by adding something into it. So that's what we wanted to kind of say with this dish. Fresh ingredients, balanced well, and it can sustain you for a long, long time. So, all right, bon appetit.
Questions on the food yet? Anything?
Come cook for me?
Yes. So we made the dough yesterday, just slow ferment overnight, and then today it was about an hour. Yeah. It's pretty straight. I mean, when you have an amazing team like this, it's pretty easy, as you know.
Of the first like one that you had us drink.
Yeah.
So that's good for like getting energized?
Yeah, in the morning, boom.
Throat, is it good for, what is it good like that?
So the nutrients in there, what they do is they kind of jumpstart your metabolism and immune system and kind of get it ready for a season maybe. If you're going into something like if you're an educator coming back into school, or if you're traveling somewhere, it just gives you a little extra boost. And you'd have to, I think I'd defer to these folks to get beyond that. But
Another one up here.
all right, bon appetit. We'll see. We have only 12 more courses, so just hang in there.
All right, so if you're needing a restroom, we have these little breaks here to socialize and eat. There's bathrooms this way, down the hall, and down this way. We're going to have Pastor Marin come up and get set up, and then we're going to launch into how to connect. Okay, remember this is synergistic, and it's not one or two of these. It's working these together, these principles. So we're going to have Pastor Marin get set up. Meryl? Okay, we're going to go to the fourth quadrant now. We're going to go to the fourth quadrant with Pastor Merrill, and we're going to do connect. So welcome, Dr. Merrill.
Dr. Merrill, whoa, all right. I just got promoted.
I was combining Perrin and Merrill.
I love it. I just got a raise. Hi, and where I'm from, everybody would say amen, hallelujah right there. But it's all about connect, so we're going to go into that in just a second. But just to connect, I know you have your waters and your other things in your hand, but let's stand up. Let's do something totally different. Let's do some movement, right, Dr. Perrin? And let's introduce ourselves to two people that you don't know. So you already got name tags, so it should help. Everybody find two people that you don't know. Wow, this is a friendly group. All right. Only two. And it was just meant to be an introduction. Some of y'all are sharing life stories, catching up, going all the way back. How was your week? This is a talkative group. I love this. Okay. I'm Landon Merrill. I'm the pastor of Bridge Church here in Flagstaff. We started 4.5 years ago. And just a quick introduction, I've been married for 17 years, my wonderful wife back there, who's amazing, the better half by far. And Dr. Perrin and her team, and Dr. Graff, delivered our baby last year. And so we have a little 1-year-old girl, and she's phenomenal. She's the joy of our life. We tried for 14 years and finally got pregnant and delivered and had a beautiful, wonderful baby. And she is at home with a babysitter. And by the time we get home, she will be asleep. And we have a mommy and daddy night out. And so this is our date night right here. But it's good to be with you guys. We launched our wonderful church, and now we have 24 home churches around the nation. We have 135 churches that we planted in 4 years. And then we also are in every prison in the state of Arizona. I'll be sharing a little bit about that here in a little bit. I work with the governor right now and the next governor to come to help reduce recidivism in the state of Arizona. And so we're busy. And we're also here at NAU on campus. I'm the NAU football team and basketball team pastor, and speak to them and just encourage those wonderful people and work with a lot of athletes and a lot of wonderful students here on campus and faculty. I'm thankful to be here with all of you and thankful to be able to share just this next piece. I'm like many of you who have never heard of Blue Zones, and when I heard of Blue Zones, I said, this is the best thing I've ever heard of. I can't wait. And so I was studying, learning. I didn't read all the articles, but I did as much as I could just to connect and plug into all of that. I want to say a quote to start us off because it's about connecting, and you're going to recognize this. It's, you may say I'm a dreamer. Help me. But I hope I'm not the only one, right? And then I hope I'm not, hopefully someday you'll join us and the world can live as one, by John Lennon. So we want to connect and we want to make an impact for the betterment and the happiness and the health of a lot of people. And connecting is difficult, right? I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, connecting with new people can be a challenge. Connecting with somebody, connecting with faith, connecting with loved ones, connecting, I'm going to talk about that spouse or that significant other and family. And if we're really honest, family can be the hardest people to connect with. And that's difficult. And so it takes a lot of courage. It takes a whole lot of courage. And so I just want to start off with a short little story. And it's about this sea captain who lived long ago. And this sea captain was in his quarters, and one day his lieutenant came bursting in and said, Captain, there are 10 enemy ships headed our way. The captain slowly stood up behind his desk, looked at his lieutenant, said, get me my red coat. No, Captain, there are 10 enemy ships headed our way. We're going to die. You got to do something. Get me my red coat. So he gets his red coat. He buttons him up, makes him look all pretty. And after he looks so good, they said, okay, let's go out. They go out and they fight and they win and they beat all 10 enemy ships. And the lieutenant came to his captain afterwards. He said, hey, that was great. I'm glad we won. But what was the deal with the red coat? He said, if I were to be shot in battle and begin to bleed, I don't want my men to see the blood and lose their commitment, lose their courage, lose their hope. And I said, man, that's a captain I want to be connected to right there. And a little bit later, the captain's sitting in his quarters. Lieutenant, same thing. He comes bursting through the doors. He says, Captain, there are 20 enemy ships headed our way. And the captain slowly stood up just like before, looked at his lieutenant right in the eyes, and he said, Lieutenant, fetch me my brown pants. Hopefully none of this food causes any of that for anybody. But I'll encourage you on the one thing. Connecting can be difficult, but connecting can also be the greatest thing. Sometimes you don't know how it's going to turn out, and you just sometimes have to fake it till you make it. Sometimes you just have to step out in faith. Sometimes you have to step out with courage. Sometimes you have to step out and say, okay, let's see how this works out, because we just don't know. And if we all knew the future, then it's not living a life of faith, it's living a life of facts. But life life changes and it gets curveballs and ups and downs, and it's difficult. And so when I was talking and thinking about and just preparing for connecting, there are 3 different areas that I saw that are in these blue zones that are crucial to really helping somebody connect in a healthy way. Because again, connecting is difficult, connecting is challenging, but connecting is crucial. It can be the most beautiful thing, and it can be the most devastating thing. To connect to the wrong thing and unhealthy things, those are bad things. So how do we connect in a healthy way? How do we connect in a way that makes us happier? How can we connect that makes us healthier and challenges us in a great way? And so when we were looking at these in the blue zones, they showed that this was the next piece. And right here, you can see that we connect with our loved ones first, our significant other or spouse and family. And it says committing to a life partner can add up to 3 years of life expectancy. And so it's just connecting and committing to somebody. Now, there are 3 different things that if I was going to look at this and say that would be really healthy for anybody who's going to commit to somebody or commit to their family, is simply stepping out and saying, you know what, I'm not just going to connect with them, I'm going to, number 1, commit to them. And commitment seems difficult now, especially nowadays. And I encourage you, if you step out and commit with somebody, if you commit with one, stay committed, stay plugged in, say, you know what, this is what I'm here for. Because it's easy in life to say, you know what, I'm thinking of something better. Or it's easy to let go. It's easy to just, back off and not be committed, and because when you're wanting to be connected and say family's first and my loved one is first, commitment is the first key element in order stepping out into that place of connection to say, you know what, I'm committed. And a lot of people, that's a hard place. But let me just tell you, that also breeds a lot of safety. It breeds security. It breeds boldness and courage. I work with a lot of foster care kids, and let me just tell you, one of their things is just knowing that somebody's there for them and committed to them. And while some people wouldn't change their golf schedule for their family, I hope there's a lot of people in these blue zones that are saying, you know what, it's family first, it's my kids first, it's my significant other, it's my spouse first, it's my partner first. Why? Because I want to create a space, I want to create opportunity where you not only feel connected, but you understand my commitment. And my commitment is so important because when leaders, and I'm just going to, everybody is a leader to some degree, when you're a leader and you have commitment, followers will have courage. But when leaders lack commitment, followers lack courage. And that's the story of even the captain, right? The captain steps up, I'm committed, I'm in this, right? And it's a funny and it's a goofy story. But at the same time, we see a lot of courage, a lot of boldness when people understand that, you know what? I know you're with me. I know you're for me. I know you got my back in this. I know we're committed. The second thing in this first piece is communication. So when it talks about committing to loved ones first, I just get it in C's to easy to remember, commitment and communication. And one of the biggest things in 20 years of ministry that I've seen, and doing this full time and counseling and meeting and working with all kinds of different departments and different businesses and different places and different families and different, or whatever it may be, communication is huge. And we all know that, but let me just go a step further for you in how communication can get that much more effective for you. It's communicating expectations. It's communicating expectations in their family to say, you know what, because everybody says, hey, I just need more time for us, or I need more vacation time together, or I need more hangout time together, or maybe our partner and our family is saying, hey, we just need some quality time. Okay, then how much quality time is enough quality time? How much communication is enough communication? Some of us, if you don't know it, there's 5 love languages, and you can speak those 5 love languages, and it's quality time, it's physical touch, it's acts of service, it's a wonderful study. But let me just tell you, whatever it may be, communicating a healthy expectation prevents a lot of unneeded frustration, because unmet expectations become a place of frustration. But that's where good, healthy communication of just saying, hey, this is what I expect. When I do premarital counseling, we encourage people to say, hey, what's your expectation? Because everybody has their picture. No matter what they want to say, they have a picture of what they think it will be like. But if you communicate that expectation, if there's healthy, open, transparent, vulnerable communication, and I would say even for those who are learning the healthy communication, because we could talk about this for a long period of time, healthy communication as a communicator is not just being transparent, but being vulnerable, because transparency just means you can see through it. Vulnerability says you can move things around it. And when it comes to your loved ones, when it comes to your significant other, I would encourage every single person who's stepping into a place where loved ones come first is vulnerable. communication. And the last thing that I want to give you in this part is contentment. That not only commitment, not only communication, but stepping into a place where we see in these blue zones that there are healthier, happier people who live an extra few years of happier and healthier lives. And if you haven't decided this or figured this out or heard this before, Dr. Perry and I were just mentioning it, is happiness is a decision, not a place. And so we choose to be happy, stay positive. If you make happiness a place, then discouragement has a place too. And so then I'm not going to pick and say, oh, well, I'm only going to be discouraged if I'm with them or here if I'm at work, because we make work a place of discouragement or a place of joy. But my happiness is a decision. And so we step into that by what? By stepping into these wonderful blue zones and understanding, okay, I'm going to put loved ones first, and I'm going to do that by, there's a lot of ways you could do this. And I'm not acting like an expert, like I've got all the answers, but I'm just giving, like Dr. Perrin, just a few ways that I've seen it be healthy. And that commitment, and then on top of that, that communication and the contentment is massive. Why? Because when you're committed to loved ones and you're committed to your spouse or your kids first, if there's not a place of contentment, the grass will always look greener eventually. If you're not content with what you have and who you have, things will always look better when things are rough somewhere else, with someone else, or I'm going to just avoid putting loved ones first because I just don't want to deal with it, and we back out. But if you're content, if there is a healthy contentment, and it says, you know what, I'm committed here, I want to communicate here, and this is good for me. I want to stay with this. And that beautiful place brings such peace. Now, the next piece that I want to share with you that they give us, and I don't want to be too long, is belong. Belonging to a faith-based organization can add years to your life, and attending services 4 times a month can add between 4 to 14 years of happy, healthy lifestyle. And this is huge because each and every one of us operate by faith, whether we know it or not. Everybody operates by faith. And so when you belong to a faith-based organization, it takes it to another level. But we all operate according to faith, agnostic, atheist, or a believer of any kind in any direction. We operate by faith. We operate in faith when we said, I'm coming here and I hope the food is good. That's called faith right there. I'm coming here and I hope when I sit down, this chair is not going to buckle underneath me. I hope the speakers are going to give me something that I can walk away with and do something with. We operate by faith every day. It's just, how do we direct our faith? And this is giving us the study, the science, the research behind it to say operating in faith is going to enhance your life. It's going to cause you to be happier. It's going to cause you to be healthier in your life. And then I love this, guys, because guess what? As a pastor, I stand in front of my church and I say, hey, y'all suckers need to be here 4 times a month right here. It's going to extend your life and be able to share this with them because you're going to be happier and you're going to be healthier. And one of the things we even say at our church is we tell people, smile. You're at church, right? You shouldn't look miserable in one of the places that you're causing your faith to grow. And when your faith is attached, listen, when your faith is attached to your heart and you really become intentional by it, you're not only going to belong somewhere, because that's part of it, belonging to a faith-based organization, you're going to take your belief into becoming who you are, into a wonderful, happy, healthy individual. So let me share just a little glimpse of another story. We do a lot of prison ministry, and so I was asked by the governor and by the state of Arizona to help reduce recidivism. And what we've understood over the last years of doing this is that when an individual, an incarcerated individual, gets faith in prison, and then when they leave and get released, because we get 14, if you didn't know this, there's 14,000 inmates released every year in the state of Arizona. And so we have probably 263 peer mentors that they can come out and be mentored by. So we're really shorthanded there. So the goal is to help create family structure that supports, help create individuals who can support them as they come out. But the biggest thing is this. We found that if they get faith in prison and then they come out and connect with that faith-based organization, wherever it is. One of my friends that I preach with at the prisons, he's Muslim and I'm Christian. And guess what? We love doing it together because he got released at the age of 63 after being in there for 40 years. And he got connected to faith. He used to train with Muhammad Ali in the Valley. And they started a Muhammad Ali Foundation down in the Valley. He's a phenomenal, incredible, wonderful man. But let me just tell you this. When we share our faith with everybody and they get connected to faith, recidivism drops by 80%. And so their success rate goes through the roof. We have multiple wonderful, wonderful people who get released and they start their own businesses. That all of a sudden they start connecting to a spouse. They start reconnecting with their kids. Everything starts ticking up in their life when they find faith and they get released with that faith to connect with that faith outside of there. I mean, and that, let alone the science here, the science there, for each and every one of us, and trying to create a blue zone, trying to establish it, trying to leave from here. Many of you know this, you're bought in, you're like, I love this, I hope that more people catch on to it. I want to see more people, I don't know about you, smiling, happy and more jovial than ever before. And part of that is just belonging. Because most people's greatest need is, I just want to be accepted. I want to belong. I want to feel like I belong and I'm accepted. In fact, not just most, that's really everybody's number one desire. And so helping that, encouraging that, that's phenomenal. Because we all should have that desire to help people feel belong or a part of and become the best version of themselves, if you will. I want to keep going here. I don't want to take too long. But the last thing is this, the right tribe. So it's not only putting in priorities, of course, and you see the value system as it kind of progresses. It's starting at home, right? Who's at home? Take care of the family. Then after that, it's going to a faith-based organization, but not just making it big and generic, but saying, who's my top 5 closest people? And really, the top 5 closest people in your life determine the trajectory of your life. The top 5 that they've determined will determine whether or not you're happy and you're healthy. There are the Debbie Downers. There are the wet blankets. There are those but you get to determine how close they are. And so that is the biggest piece. I don't think that anybody should burn a bridge of any relationship in your life. That's why we're called Bridge Church. I think that bridges should be built and not burnt, and I think that relationships should be managed, not destroyed. And so I manage my relationships by determining the proximity of influence that I have for them in my life. But most people, again, back to communication, don't communicate healthy expectation with even the closest people, saying, I need you to encourage me today, or I need you to speak life to me today. Hey, you're my friend, and let me tell you why you're my friend, because you're the one who always is a go-getter. You motivate me, you inspire me, you take me to another level. Well, that 5 closest people in your life are going to be the people that determine your future. And if I can, I'm going to go a step further. They don't need to be somebody, a lot of business gurus and Lencioni, if you study business and all that, they're going to tell you it has to, get around millionaires if you want to be a millionaire. Get around whatever, pro athletes if you want to be a pro athlete. Well, that's difficult when you're not a pro athlete and you're not a millionaire because they don't want to hang out with you. And you're like, okay, great. Well, I know them. But they don't know me, and I don't think they want to hang out with me. Because the difficult part is not everybody likes you, but how do you connect? Because that is the heart, that is the tragedy in the world, is not everybody's going to like everybody, but who are my somebodies? Who are the 5 closest people? And I wore this ring tonight because I want to share this story. When it comes to my top 5 closest people, I'm very intentional about that. Because I know that will shape where I can go and the potential of my future. I don't need somebody who's already there. I just need somebody who's in like-mindedness to say, that's where we want to go. Does that make sense? Because when I was younger, I was appointed an athletic director for a school in the state of Arizona. And they appointed me to start an athletic program from scratch. And they said, you played college ball, you did all that stuff. Hey, why don't you just start this athletic program? Well, we started it, and I launched my first team, right? Football, and I got fired up. I love football, and guess what? We lost every single game. We got hammered. And guess what? I was like, that's okay. That's okay, guys. We're going to start basketball. We're going to start basketball. And we're like, basketball's next. And we started a basketball team. And guess what happened? We lost every single game. And then I was like, all right, it's spring, baby. Finally, we're at spring. We're going to start a baseball team. And we lost every single game. But as we were getting beaten and annihilated, I'm sitting there, and I never played baseball in my life. And so, but I was athletic. I played basketball and football. And when I was trying to teach them, I was getting there. I'm trying to teach them how to play baseball. And I'm like standing at the plate. I'm like, I'm athletic. I can hit. Just toss it, and I'll show you how to hit a ball, right? And so I'm sitting there, and I had one of our athletes. I said, just throw me the ball. This is high school. So I have an 18-year-old throwing me the ball, and I'm like, I got this. Just underhand it, and I'm going to teach you how to hit. I struck out teaching him how to hit from an underhand pitch. It was awful. Now, the reason I bring that up is because On the fence line was this guy who was standing there, was an uncle of one of the kids, and he had never coached before. He didn't have a degree. He didn't have any of those things. He didn't have the expertise, but he loved baseball, knew baseball, played baseball, was very familiar. But I didn't know all that. But he was standing on the fence line, and he said, hey, can I come help you? And I was like, yeah, come on out here, buddy. And I said, come on. And I brought him in, and it went from, hey, can I help you, to, hey, can you be my assistant coach? Hey, can you be the head coach? And we went from losing every game, winning 500 the next year, which is half. And then we went undefeated the next year, and undefeated the next year, won multiple state championships. He went on to coach at a pro level and ended up putting multiple athletes into professional baseball. And it was all because I didn't say, well, you're not really like a professional coach yet, so you don't really know what you're doing, and I'm supposed to surround myself with the top level, not the bottom level. And I said, no, you have the same goal as I do. We're heading the same direction. So my tribe isn't just randoms or somewhere I'm trying to get to. It's those who have the same like-mindedness that say, that's where we want to go. And when you surround yourself with those, all of a sudden you start seeing tremendous success. You start seeing tremendous joy, because winning is fun. and then after that, you also see tremendous, not only success and joy, but you just see health. Right? It's a healthy things grow, healthy things succeed, healthy things have that attribute a part of them. And to kind of close with a note to Dr. Perrin, my wonderful daughter who was born, we did IVF because we weren't able to conceive. But I got to be there when they took the embryo and did the implantation. It was during COVID, so I was able to be in there for 60 seconds. And so they were like, hey, Landon, Mr. Merrill, you can come in now. And they were like, but you only got 60 seconds. Wear your mask, and then we're going to rush you right back out. And so I went in there, and all the emotions, I knew the baby was going in, and I knew this was all, I'm like, oh, and I'm already emotional. And they do this little, he goes, watch this. This is called the flash point. I don't know if you, and so the flash point is when the embryo connects with the womb, and it literally glows in the womb. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's in the womb. And I could cry for 30 seconds. He was like, all right, time to get out. And I was rushed out crying out of that room. Why? Because that connection brought an incredible life. That connection, just connecting the right things at the right time in the right way, brought such beautiful joy, beautiful happiness, and beautiful health. And I just wanted to conclude this kind of time with not just sharing more information that you could Google or look on one of these, but to simply encourage you or inspire you to say, you know what, those right connection moments can do more than you could possibly imagine. And connecting to your faith and connecting with the right loved ones in your life again, rekindling, and then connecting with, all right, your tribe. Who's my five? I want to make Jay part of my five. And because when he gets up here and shares about his passion and energy for it, I mean, I love every minute of that. I want to be surrounded by people who say, I want to go, so I want to do something. Purpose, vision. There's an old proverb that says this. It says, people who lack vision dwell recklessly. It's purpose, it's vision. And so I hope you connect. And I'm used to preaching, so I'm not going to pray for you or get an amen going here in a second, or the organ's not going to start playing. But I am going to just close with just simply, like George Michael says, you got to have faith. And just step into that place of faith, step into that place of connecting, and keep those priorities healthy. Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Couple minutes for Q&A.
Oh, okay.
A couple things come to mind here. I think we need to do a research project in the prisons to bring blue zones to the prisons.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
What do you think? Secondly, do you remember those cell phone companies when they first came out? You got 5 people.
Yeah.
They're in your 5.
Yeah.
Look at. Remember, like Charles Barkley was always sitting there trying to get Michael Jordan.
Old Chuck.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Yeah.
Look at, so the research is showing that. Questions for Pastor Merrill? His presentation, comments, feedback?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, boy. I love a microphone, too.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is on. But I'll speak loud. I would love to have you address the concept of connection and faith in the reality of today, which is politically polarizing faith and connection, and being connected to people who choose to disconnect, I feel.
Yeah.
And how we can reach across that
Yep.
barrier. Because I think everyone wants the same thing, really,
Yeah.
but we've never been more divided.
Oh, 100%. So first off, whoa, that's a huge question. No, it's okay. Literally, the answer to that question fixes the world. So so yeah. What am I doing here if I don't? I'll just answer from my perspective. Okay, so I'm preaching. I'm speaking from Christianity and faith. Okay, and how we build a church and build a faith-based organization. We have 48 employees. It's 4 years old. We have a school. We have all these things. We have 135 churches, 24 campuses. Just staying connected to them is a very difficult thing in and of itself. Connection is intentional. Connection is all about the effort towards the first person you can connect with, not the person you want to connect with, because that intentionality that I find is I can't connect with everyone. I can't help everyone, but I can connect with Dr. Perrin. She's the closest to me and the closest I can touch, because we're all trying to fix or connect or help someone so far away that you skipped probably 50 people by the time you get to them. And so the answer to me in that question of connection and faith is just having hope and choosing faith to say, this will get better. We will get further. It will get more positive. The light will shine brighter. I'm just going to take it one step at a time and impact one person at a time, because faith is absolutely necessary right now in my regard, and I would, in Blue Zone's consideration, is that it is absolutely necessary for our world. Faith, I mean, what kind of life is it without any hope, without any faith? You can live 3 weeks without food. What is the quote? You can live with 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without air, but you can't live 3 seconds without hope. And hope is where your faith lies in, because faith is the action word. Belief and hope are the intent. Faith is the execution of. I have faith, therefore I sat down. I have faith, therefore I ate the food. My faith is the exercising of that hope. And so I choose hope. I choose to believe that the world will get better and we can connect and we can reach. And we're going to do it one person at a time. And we're going to do it one life at a time, one church at a time, one mission at a time. Yeah, I could share more stories. We do a ministry in Nepal, and that's a huge, and I could share that. When I saw the magazine, I was like, oh, wow, 2005, that's when the regime changed. But like, we have a great facility over there that trains and helps people over there and really brings some new hope and faith and connecting people. So more later or whatever, but I know we had more questions. Did that help at all? That was great. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, and then we had what? Did you raise your hand?
I didn't. I was just thinking, like, excellent.
Yeah, all right. And yeah, Stas, is that do that here, or do we like the little golf clap? Anybody else? Any other questions in the back?
If faith helps so much with recidivism, 80%, why do you feel that most systems, jails, government, all that kind of stuff, don't focus on that to help with it?
You want an honest answer, or do you want like a real? Okay, so that's a fully loaded answer. 2 reasons are, number one, church and state. It's hard to mix the two, and so because it's a difficult road to hoe, especially when it becomes to, I'm a warden, I've worked my entire life to become the director and chief of, right? And then if I bring in an emphasis in faith, I could lose everything of the last 60 years that I built to get here. So it is, like a lot of times what they bring me in there for is like, hey, just be motivational, don't talk about Jesus. So I go in, I'm like, hey, you could conquer the world, you could do anything. And I just motivate them and inspire them and bring faith to them, because faith comes by hearing. What you hear is how you'll perceive a thing, and so it changes what they see, and if you change what you see, you'll change what you say. And so I bring that faith in any way I can. and that's how we begin, and it helps open the door, and then it kind of continues to do more and more and more. The other side of that those are state and federal prisons. There are the privatized prisons that are, who is watching this? that are absolutely more focused on the money than anything, unfortunately. I have never been invited to a private prison. Let's just put it like that. We'll leave it at that, if that helps. But we want to get there. The goal is to change. And you know what? I've had directors in this state and wardens say, what happens when we empty these prisons? And we're watching the numbers as I keep coming back go lower and lower. And I said, well, let's turn these prisons into churches. And, you know, dude, that was my goal. But anyway, so we're trying. And that is a big concern. But you take the battle of one bite at a time, right? I think, yes, you raise your hand, sir.
Awesome presentation. I appreciate very much the discussion on faith, and I'm just wondering, because I study like prayer and I do motivational talks too, and you know, like has there ever been research on like how often, let's say some religions like Navajo religion, we pray like 3-4 times a day, we're singing, we're taught how to pray. It's like there's a structure to it. It's very positive, there's gratitude in the prayer, you know. And then the problem that what I see too a lot is that the faith teaches you what to do about mankind. You know, like being Navajo means you help your neighbor, you help your grandkids, you help your nephews, you help your community, you uplift, you make sure that nobody's starving, that everybody has firewood. You know. But when I look at a lot of faiths, they don't do that. They just stay in their little circle. Yeah. And I'm just wondering if there's research on how that contributes to your well-being. You know, if you're just kind of go there just for yourself only. So it's that selfish mentality. Yep. Versus what like faith really teaches is helping others and getting out of your comfort zone. Yeah. So.
No, thank you for asking that question. It's a great question, and there is science behind that. And there is just lifetime studies, and pastors and ministers and leaders and spiritual leaders all over that have seen that serving others creates a happier, healthier perspective of anybody, and it creates an outward focus rather than inward focus. Inward focuses causes implosion. Outward focuses cause somebody to really say, you know what, my problems aren't that big. I see somebody who could use some help. I see somebody who could be, and you just become a wonderful answer instead of a continuation of a part of the problem. Because when people continue to focus just on themselves, all they do is continue to implode. And everything I gave you about even just from it, whether it's the beginning of loved ones and spouses first, or it's the next step of belonging to a greater group, or it's my top 5, none of them said, talk about you, think about you, focus on you. All of them were literally focused on others. And so it was putting my spouse's needs ahead of my own and my kids' needs. And then it was, even after that, belonging to an organization. At our church, we encourage everybody to get crazy and loud and wild. Why? Because you need to be excited. If you're not excited about something that you're a part of, then why be a part of it? And so it's not about you being the Debbie Downer in the group, like, just looking miserable and leaving depressed every time. You should leave there saying, man, I'm so glad I went there. Why? Because it wasn't focused on just me. It was focused on, man, look at all these wonderful people. Look at how incredible this is. Look at how diverse this is. Look at how, and that's the focus. Then the tribe is, it's not just somebody saying, hey, I need you for me. It's how can I help you? Because any healthy top 5 close relationship is not going to just be about how they can serve you, but how you can serve them. And part of my biggest desire and dream is to build other people's dreams. The reason I am in those prisons is because I went up to wardens and I said, how can we serve you and accomplish your mission? The reason I went to, I'm here at NAU is I said, how can we accomplish your vision and your purpose and what you want to do? It had nothing to do with a backhanded desire of like, let's get these people in our church and that's weird and stupid. But if you're able to say, you know what, we want to serve you, and how can we just make you look like a rock star? The Boys and Girls Club, there's a WNBA court up there that most people don't know about that our church paid for. for and partnered with the whole city to make happen. Why? Because we just said, how can we make y'all's facility and your place look, that cost us $35,000. Well, is it worth it? 100%, because there's been hundreds of kids up there, and they get to play basketball, and they get to have fun, and they get to have an incredible time, and they get to have all these leaders play up there, and we cut the ribbon with Nancy Lieberman and these superstar athletes, and it was phenomenal. But we were just over here, over on the side, and we don't even go up there. They have a wonderful time. To answer your question, I hope I haven't gone too far in all this, is to say, yes, there is tremendous amounts of science and study and just lifetime research, and just in general, we all know the saying, it's better to give than receive. And so it's all about really putting other people's first. And so thank you for asking that question. I'm sorry, do we have more time? Because I saw 2 more hands go up.
Back with on the panel.
I didn't mean to be too long.
Chef Mark, taste number 3.
You got it.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right, let's taste and see that this is good. What you're going to experience now is, and you can again thank my wife for this, because I haven't even made this at home yet. This is her favorite soup that we have to have every season. So, and be careful, this is hot. You all signed the waiver, so I'm not worried. This is a fall squash soup, and it does have dairy in it, but it's listen to the number of vegetables that are in here. Red onion, leeks, carrots, butternut squash, acorn squash, and then we have some spices in there, 100% Vermont maple syrup, because that's the only one you should all be buying, because that's where I came from, and some local cream, Stratford cream, and then little toasted pepitas on top. So we'll give you a few minutes to go ahead and taste it. If you're tasting it at home, now you can taste it at home if you'd like.
Keep yelling. I'm listening.
Okay.
But you started.
I know. You're right.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
This is such a simple soup. Simple. And so this is kind of what, what Pastor Landon was saying, and Dr. Perrin was saying, how, what you bring into your life will express how you feel and a lot of your outlook, right? Who you surround yourself. If you surround yourself with great vegetables, you're going to have great soup. And but really what we wanted to say with this dish was eating seasonally and making sure you understand the importance of seasons, right? There is a season, and we need to be mindful of that. Pumpkin spice latte, right? You only can have that in the fall. No, or never. But how much better is food seasonally? How much healthier is food seasonally versus if you had strawberries this week, right? Not so great. So that's really all we wanted to say with this this dish is simple cooking, seasonal, and just cook with love. I think that's the best thing you can do. So, all right, well, bon appetit. I think we'll just enjoy your soup. I'm not going to sit here and ramble, but...
Questions on this dish? Questions for Chef Mark on this dish?
When are we making it?
I made extra. No.
They're in your book. Recipes are all in the book.
What's the best way to get such a...
So for that, you cook the vegetables properly, and so that's about when you cook, you develop flavor, and a lot of people don't understand how long to cook something. So the onions sweated for probably 20 minutes, slow. For example, on the flatbread, the onions caramelized for 12 hours. Slow and low. So there's and people are so rushing everything, and give it time. And so, but the way it got so smooth is we use a nice blender, a great blender, and then before we served it, we used an immersion blender to get it kind of re-energized.
I have a question.
Yes.
We do make squash. We do it like this, but we use fresh coconut.
Oh yeah, that could work great.
Instead of cream,
Yes.
I always use fresh coconut, and then I blend it, and it's so tasty.
Yes. Wonderful.
And then I also add a little bit of garlic
Yep. Wonderful.
and no cream.
Yeah. Yeah, you can certainly make this 100% vegan if you wanted to. Yeah. It definitely works.
Is the bowl edible?
We actually had that asked. One of the students is back there on the floor. He tried eating it. No, they're not. But they're actually. It's a sustainable community in Nepal, and they make these out of palm leaf, and they're. I mean, it's completely compostable. You know, like, and you're supporting an economy that needs some direct support. So it's kind of fun.
You go down there most of the marketplace.
Yeah.
You buy things.
Yeah. Yeah, right. They fold them in really cool ways. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. The students had a lot of fun making it, and we're going to go do some dishes now. So.
All right, great, thank you. So we're going to transition right now and start getting ready for our panel discussion, where they're going to be given 5 to 7 minutes to introduce who they are, what they're involved in, and then they're going to take some questions and answers. We're going to talk about the different populations, the different types of action that's taking place right now, and how we can synergistically combine our efforts to move this forward in Arizona. Now, I feel impressed to tell you right now that, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but this is a reality check. All 5 of these blue zones right now, they're watching the next generation come up, and we talked about genetics. The next generation does not look like they're going to be living with the longevity and vitality that the centenarians are doing right now. Why is that? Because the lifestyles are changing. They're not doing the slow-cooked food. They're not connecting. They're getting on these a lot more FaceTime. We're disconnecting from people, and they're losing their distinction. It looks like they're going to lose their distinction as a centenarian blue zone group with the next generation. So genetics might be great. You tell us about your relative. You told us on the phone about your relative.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention my great-grandma. She is 101, and yeah, she's never gone to a gym or day in her life, and she is proud to say that. And she is a spitfire. She walks and goes and does everything on her own. She's fully cognizant, healthy, beautiful woman, and vibrant as ever, and she's wild. But yeah, 101. Great-grandma Stoops.
Cool. Now, I'm all about technology, okay? But we're addicted to LSD, labor-saving devices, right? We're addicted. And we, in a sense, control our own destiny, right? And so I just needed to warn ourselves a little bit about these blue zones that we're touting and we're excited about, but looking into the future doesn't look so good. But I think we can still, together, move this forward. So we're going to pull our panel together right now. And I'm going to move this out of here. The first presenter is going to be Jenna, she's online tonight because she's working in another part of Arizona, has meetings and things like that. So Jenna's representing Local First Arizona. We also have with us Tony right here. He's the CEO of Tribe Awaken and a founder of Navajo Power. Okay, and then we have Debbie. And then online will be Tomas with the Blue Zones Activate Greater South Phoenix projects. They can tell us about what they're doing in South Phoenix. So we've chosen people from different parts of our great state of Arizona. And it's really interesting that I share the birth date with Arizona, February 14th, a few years apart. So I've been here for 12 years, but I feel like I'm a native to Arizona, okay? But we need to do this together, and that's why we've brought together these folks. They're going to take 5 to 7 minutes to introduce what they're doing, and then we're going to talk about how can we go to the next steps, whether it's for research, whether it's for community activism, maybe it's policy in the state. How can we move this forward? And that's the purpose of this workshop. So, Jenna, are you ready? There we go. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jenna, for being a part of our panel. So go ahead and introduce yourself, the work you're trying to do and doing actively in the state of Arizona.
Sure. Thanks all for having me. I'm really sad not to be in the room because I myself am a lumberjack. Go Jacks. So great to be with you remotely. I am with Local First Arizona, and I lead the rural development team. So let me start with what's Local First Arizona. We will be celebrating 20 years next year, and we were founded by a very spunky, tenacious visionary named Kimber Lanning, who is an Arizona native, and she is an entrepreneur herself. She owns Stinkweeds, the record store in Tempe, if any of you know it. And she was one of only about 2 women to be on that scene at the time of owning a record store nationally. And she has just been dedicated to making Arizona a great place for entrepreneurs to start and grow businesses. And then that branched out and branched out. In 2014, we became the state's Rural Development Council. And I bet most of you have never heard of that before and might not know what a Rural Development Council does. So that's a federal designation. It was a little bit of a governmental experiment dating back to 1990, where 8 rural development councils were named. Today, there are about 14. And what it means is we're supposed to be a force for collaboration, a way to bring together public-private sector on the vitality and prosperity and long-term success of rural communities and rural economies. So we're big believers that rural economies are heavily about a lot of what the blue zones, we didn't know they were called blue zones back in some of our designing of this, but the blue zone qualities of life. That includes local connections with people that have been talked about. That includes local access to fresh and healthy food, which has been talked about. And the bummer about not being there is I didn't get to do all the tastings, but it looked excellent. And when NAU reached out about being on this panel, what I thought was so interesting is that one of the things we have not fully launched, but I wanted to share with you today, was informed by the blue zones. And what it is we're out across the state working with all kinds of rural communities, including tribes, on their economic development, on their quality of life issues, on the big hairy issues like infrastructure from water to transportation. And we get asked to engage in different projects and work, and sometimes knowing if that's the right project or work for a community at the right time, and if the community has the will and the capacity to take it on, can be difficult. There can be some subjectivity to that. And so we wondered, with all of the great work and research out there, including blue zones, could we bring a more structured framework to help communities know, where are you with your community strength and resiliency as being a great place to live and work, raise a family, pursue an education, and hopefully grow old and into your, 3-digit numbers on age. And so I just want to show you really quickly with my time. I'm not presenting every slide here. I just want to run through and show you how blue zones was one area of best practice that we looked at to start developing a framework that communities could use, in rural Arizona specifically, to maybe see where they're at on an index. So I am going to attempt to share screen. And can you all give me a verbal you can see it? Can't tell. Are you able to see it? Sorry, I can't see you all.
Yes, we can hear you. You can continue.
Okay, thank you. Can hear you from the room. Okay, so real quickly, let me show you that the factors in our index are business strength and entrepreneurship, community connection and engagement, talent development and retention, resource stewardship and sustainability, and health and well-being. That last one is the clearest and explicit link back to blue zones, but you'll see a lot of the other principles tie into that as well. And so the framework is about helping communities know Okay, my business strength and entrepreneurship, am I a good place to do business? Can people create a livelihood here and then grow that business and have it strong? You can see on the screen some of the factors that would help measure that, and look at how much of it is locally related and then spans out into regional integration. That goes back to the connections that Blue Zones talk about. We really believe you first have to have a local connection to place and people. But especially in rural, to be successful, you've got to collaborate and you've got to regionalize on solutions. And then what kind of culture are you building for visionary thinkers and the real idea starters and risk takers to be in your community and make an idea a reality? Community connection and engagement, so much of what's been talked about today and this evening through different speakers. I won't belabor this one, but the one I will point out is third places are so important, right? And I think it's where we sort of suffered through COVID, because it was truly just work and home. And for many people, work became home. And so suddenly you didn't even have two places, but there certainly wasn't that third place connection out into your community and that network that's been talked about tonight. Talent development and retention. This matters a lot both to employees and entrepreneurs and people seeking to be part of the economy in some way. Feeling like I have a job that I'll be able to keep, it brings some job security, but this also matters a lot on the employer side, right? That I'm able to attract and keep good talent and give them a place to grow their careers. And so that has a lot to do with educational levels, but also quality of jobs, and then the folks who are available to take those jobs and qualified to do them. And then resource stewardship and sustainability. This is really important. This one is a bit of a political football. And so out in rural, you have a lot of different political dynamics. And so this includes asking questions like, what are your views and attitudes on conservation? And as a community, do you have resources dedicated to sustainability? Many don't, and some of that is because they don't have the resources, but in other places, there's still some lack of will to know that that should be a big focus area. And so understanding that is really important to measuring community health and community strength. And then again, health and well-being, and that comes back to so much of tonight around personal habits, personal routine, places you can go to be active, that you can get out and walk and do some of the good practices that have been talked about tonight. And then I just wanted to make a plug. Healthy food is just a big, big part of Local First mission, both for how that fits into the economy, but into well-being. And so if you're interested in that tract, we have Arizona's Good Food Finder. You literally could just put Good Food Finder into Google, and we've done a lot of work to create a state directory of the small farms, the farmers markets, the supply chain basically of good, healthy, fresh food in Arizona. So I just wanted to make a plug for that, and I hope I stuck within my time.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Jenna. Next up, we're going to have Tony, and he's going to introduce himself. And I think, are we pulling up your website? We're going to pull up a website for Tony? Yeah. Okay, Tony is the CEO of Tribe Awaken and also of the founder of Navajo Power. So Tony, go ahead.
I'm sure you heard that by now. Yeah, I'm waiting for him to pull up my website. I run an organization called Tribe Awaken, and we started this, I was raised by my grandparents. That's my grandpa's hand right there. And you can see our logo. It's about traditional farming, food systems, sheep tradition, health, and renewable energy, and sacredness, And really, I guess the best way to talk about this is really talking about my grandpa, who just recently passed, and he lived to be 103 years old, and centenarian, and he lived very healthy, didn't take a lot of medicine, was herding sheep up to his 90s, and we did a ceremony for him. I'm very into our traditional culture and ceremonies, and he was very healthy, young body still in his 90s. And he actually looked like a young man, you know, he wasn't hunched over or anything, and really strong, strong looking. And his hair stayed dark till his 90s too. So I have good genes. And my mom is now in her 70s, and she doesn't have not one medical issue and doesn't take any medication, you know. But so when I look at that, and that really inspired me, and I was like, there's something there, you know. And like Pastor, I really appreciated his presentation. I approached this by working to motivate my people, you know. And I went into the study of longevity, and that's how I met Jay too. Is I actually took my daughters, who are now in college, and we went to Loma Linda to study, because I had heard about blue zones years ago, maybe 8-10 years ago, and I really got into the study of longevity. And why I did that is because I saw what was happening with our people, you know. And this longevity was so common in Navajo that we have celebration of it in our ceremonies. You know, we actually have this winter game that where we use yucca stems, and we use 103 of them. And when we sing and we say, like, one of the things that we use in our blessing way is this term called Sa'anagaybik Ahojo. And that's one that lives, achieves long life, is the one that has ultimate wisdom, and everything, you know, thrives with their wisdom, you know. And but a lot of colonization, a lot of fast food, you know, the colonizers took our people on a long walk and introduced them to flour, to coffee, to lard. And we lost this, a lot of our people slowly lost this traditional system of food. But also you know, what made my grandpa's life so long was that old way of living, you know, the herding the sheep, even learning the type of sheep, learning the plants, planting the corn. My grandpa was very ceremonial. He's really, really esteemed. When he passed, hundreds of people were actually at the hospital, you know. And the doctors and the nurses were saying they've never seen somebody so content when he knew what was coming. You know, he was so content, so happy, you know. And that's is when you're there, and in our way, when somebody lives that long, you celebrate it, you know. It's a celebration. We don't do a funeral for that person. We actually have a feast, and we laugh, and it's joy, you know, because somebody's lived that long. So, but with the acculturation, with colonization, we've lost a lot of those ways, and so my job is to teach that again, you know. And so I, as you heard, I talk about food structures, and I talk about our traditional foods and what's made up of them, and what it does for you, you know. And there's a lot in our tradition that is incredible. And I've done cooking classes even for Jay's class, you know, where and I'm not much of a chef, but I'm a good storyteller. But I love the story of our food, you know, and I just think that it has incredible potential. It's a lot more healthier. It's mostly plant-based. But even the type of meat that we have, they did a study on sheep meat. When you heard it, the Navajos are experts at breeding the right type of sheep, knowing the traditional plants, the type of medicines, what it does to the plants or to the sheep meat, and they actually found omega-3 content in our sheep, and it's really healthy for you. And the way we process it, the approach we take, the way we treat the sheep, I call it happy sheep. You know, they're spiritual, they're medicine, they're happy sheep. But we do that with our corn, we do that the plants that we collect. So you imagine, like, if we had that as our diet, you know. But it goes beyond that, as was talked about here. Having purpose, we do things like our prayer structure is important, right? Every day, every morning when you pray, you use the corn pollen that comes from the corn plant that's collected with proper prayer. But in my success workshops, a lot of times I'll say, if you just did just that one thing where you prayed properly, you actually got up. We have early morning gods that are out walking. They're looking at your house. They're looking at you. And if you're up at the crack of dawn and you're doing the prayer, you're out running. That increases your chances of a success in anything you do by over 50%. Just that one activity, because you're now positive, you now have a plan for the day, you're praying for your interactions of yesterday, you're praying for your interactions tomorrow, you're praying, you're expressing gratitude in our prayer, and you do that several times a day. Then you add in other things. We celebrate things like humor, and a lot of people wonder, like, why do we do a feast and giveaway at the first laugh, And you get into that, and you say, well, humor is so critical, and you got to joke, and people forget that. People get uptight, and they try to be perfect, And I love my people. We're actually really dirty-minded too, and I love that. I think I encourage that, because that's so critical to us. That way of joking, that way of and so, but we get away from that because they're I don't know, we're taught like how to be uptight, but and clanship, what it means, when we do ceremonies, the clans have responsibility and they all help, and you're supposed to help. We're taught that when you help somebody, it could be your time, it could be hauling wood for a grandma, it could be helping at a ceremony, it could be your presence at a singing, but you get blessed back immensely, a lot more back, and that's really what we're taught. But a lot of people get away from that, And I teach about even the meaning of being Dene or tribal. I do a lot of talks about this, and so that's kind of where I started coming from, and I studied Blue Zones, and it's like, we got to do this on Navajo, So Jay and I have become really good friends, and I see what Jay's about, and so I'm all over the space. I'm actually working with NAU on that intervention project, and really we're using Navajo chefs, plant-based knowledge holders, really teaching we want to teach the folks how to get back to our tradition, but also lifestyle, also this traditional knowledge, these old ways, and what it can do for your life. And I could go on, because I do hold seminars on this. But really, I think that's really the key. And so our company, we also work at a high level on, we're working with Navajo on starting new grocery stores. We're working on an independent brand that buys locally. We're looking at the whole value chain. We want to help. We're driving Navajo to do massive new developments that include, restaurants and cafes, but I'm always encouraging them to do traditional foods and healthier foods, new hotel developments. So you're going to see a lot of expansion. So that's a lot of my work is that. And my job before was I was head of commerce for Navajo. And so but I'm approaching all this from we got to save our culture, we got to bring back longevity, So that's kind of what we do, and I'm just giving you pieces of what we're about, and you can learn more from our website. We do a lot of writing, so I do a lot of writing. There's a lot of podcasts about what I'm talking about on here, so you can learn. But thank you, Jay.
What's the word to live to 102?
It's a blessing, yeah, and it's 102. Is may you live to be 102.
That's within the Navajo culture that they say live to be 102. Okay? All right. We're going to bring it around and try to tie all this together in just a second. So next up is Debbie and Tomas, and I'm going to turn it over to them. They can introduce themselves and what they're doing in South Phoenix. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? I'm a little nervous, but now that Tony has said we don't have to be uptight, and maybe he'll tell a dirty joke before we're done tonight. So So we'll be great friends. We can talk about tampons, whatever you want to do. I'm among my people up here. So it's my tribe. So Dr. Sutliff, thank you so much for this invitation, for giving us the honor of being introduced to what's happening here in your community. Unfortunately, I don't believe Tomas is going to be able to join us. He's had a family emergency. So I'm going to try and hold down the fort here. But I think it's going to be pretty simple, because I think that this team, these presenters, this audience already know a lot about well-being, community, blue zones. And watching this play out tonight, my head has gone a million different directions, because what I have been living for the last year, look at that. What is this? So, my name is Debbie Accamazo. I serve as Community Relations Director for Equality Health Foundation. I have worked in the nonprofit community in Maricopa County for more than 20 years. And just about a year ago, I joined the foundation and our president, Tomas Leon. And we have been working since pretty much November of 2021 in launching a Blue Zones activation in Greater South Phoenix. So everything that we are embracing here, the knowledge we're bringing, the sharing that we're doing, is actually in practice taking place in 9 zip codes in Greater South Phoenix. It's been a lot. It's been a little busy. And I love what you asked, Dr. Sutliff, when we started off. And you, right when I sat down, late of course, you showed the slides from the keynote presentation that kicked off Power Week in South Phoenix. And you asked what anyone in the room knew about South Phoenix. And it's diverse, traditionally underserved. More importantly than any statistics that I can share is that it is a community that is made up of primarily 4 to 5 different cultures: Hispanic, Black, Asian, Native American. And those cultures together in those zip codes have faced decades upon decades of harm and trauma, and been left behind and not had their voices at the table. And we know that there are communities like that all across the nation, all across the world. We tell Blue Zones all the time, we're special. We're different. We have opportunities with a Blue Zones activation, but we have a great responsibility to lift in the right way. And the reason I say that is because where we are in the project, and I'll back up just a little bit and share where we are with the actual Blue Zones Activate Greater South Phoenix. What's so interesting to me is our approach began in September of 2021 with an executive overview. It was a Zoom that we've all been on for the last 2 years. We had some suits, we had some community members, we had organizations represented. It went great. It was great. Everybody was enthusiastic about it. That was where we launched, just the idea that Blue Zones may be coming to Greater South Phoenix. As we moved forward, we went into Power Week, which began the last week of March. That was our opportunity. Now, that was after much work with our counterparts at Blue Zones. We're working with Danny Buettner Jr., who looks and speaks exactly like his dad, mind you, but a lot of data study, a lot of preparation, a lot of planning, fundraising. We hit the community, if you will, the last week of March, and to a large degree, the community, it was fairly new to the community. And so to socialize this opportunity at the same time that we are assessing this community, it was a big lift, but not only that, it was a little scary for community. The concept of Blue Zones, the pillars of Blue Zones, the success of Blue Zones is in that it is for community, by community, about community. So I really just want to congratulate you, Dr. Sutliff, for what you've accomplished here, because it's almost the inverse of how Greater South Phoenix has been moved along, because you have a community of champions already, and you haven't even taken that first step yet formally. And this is powerful. This room is powerful, because when it comes to activate and bringing in the Blue Zone's experts, now among academia, expert is a term that's well accepted, and it comes with a little cachet, and it might get you through a door. Go to Greater South Phoenix, an expert, you're going to come to my community. You're an expert. You're going to tell me what's going on in my community. I am the expert in my community. Just that lexicon right there had to be changed. So it's just so interesting to me, the inverse, and when, and I know you will, and I hope we get to be part of it, move into the next stage more formally and take these pillars of whole community well-being outside of the campus of NAU. Your success is guaranteed. And I want to talk about, Tony, listening to you was incredible, and I don't know if, the good pastor here, I don't know if it's a competition, but your grandmother is how old?
She's 101. Yeah.
So, you know, Auntie is 100.
Yeah.
I got to 98 and a half. My grandmother got to 98 and a half, but I'm among heroes, I feel like. But if we're to understand really what Blue Zones is, what the concept is, it's what Tony just described to us. It is, it's nothing new. Nothing's been discovered here. This isn't new knowledge. This is taking a blueprint from generations, indigenous cultures, generations of individuals who were not pursuing health. They weren't pursuing longevity. They weren't going to the gym and seeing how much they could lift. Longevity ensued because of the way their communities were built, the way that they took care of their bodies, the way that they moved throughout their community, most importantly, the way that they were a community. And everything that you just described is exactly what the Power 9, the Blue Zones pillars, the Power 9, is exactly that. The downshifting, of course. Nobody has mentioned, by the way, wine at 5. Yeah. So, Mark, I feel like, I mean, yeah, Sardinia. I mean, I don't know how much y'all paid for tonight, but that is, you know, that is one of the Power 9s. It's not so much the wine at 5, though it's the wine at 5. It's more that you're enjoying that beverage, that libation, with your cohort, with your tribe, with your Moai. Tony, Moai, can you hold this for me real quick? I'm gonna, because I want to get it right. Is anyone familiar with the term Moai?
I feel like I've heard it before. What is that? Spell it for us.
M-O-A-I. Come on now, Dr. Sutliff, this. Moai. No? Well, you just described it. You know what a Moai is. It's a group of lifelong friends. It's a social support group that forms in order to provide varying support from social, financial, health, or spiritual interests. You're participating in a Moai tonight. Every week, you are creating a Moai. And that is one of the central values within the Power 9 is that community. So where are we in Greater South Phoenix? So I feel like I'm preaching to the choir a little bit. You like that?
Go for it.
Okay, so I'm gonna have you hold this again. So, Blue Zones, assessment readiness and feasibility report. This is Blue Zones Activate. This is work that began March 28th focused on 9 zip codes in Greater South Phoenix, and experts came into community. They no longer call themselves experts in our conversations, just so you know. We've kind of taken that lexicon and even the word assessment out of our lexicon. It has been an amazing evolution of understanding and learning that we have taken on to truly recognize and acknowledge and humble ourselves to the fact that this is about the community. These aren't decisions. If there's a go or no-go on moving into the next stage, phase 2, into the transformation stage, and the 9 months of foundation, and then in 5 years you become certified as a certified Blue Zones city, restaurants, schools, work sites. Whether or not that happens, it's not our decision to make. It's not yours, Tony. It's the collective. And the most important part of this process that we've learned is the community. And it is putting community first, following community, meeting community where they are, and remembering that community are the experts. And community in Blue Zones, in the Blue Zones world, is people, place, and policy. And you may hear that in a different order from time to time when you talk about Blue Zones, but for me, it's always people first, number one. Place, how do those people move around? What is that built environment? Policy, why policy? Why we gotta bring policy into this? Well, if we want long-term, sustainable transformation, if our policymakers aren't also a part of this transformative initiative, then there will be nothing that undergirds everything that's being done. From the grassroots, we have worked with some amazing organizations doing amazing work. Right now, our master stakeholder list is part of this project. There's more than 850 individuals and representing about 400 different organizations, and we've only just scratched the surface. And those are our experts. But from those just most deeply rooted missions, community-based organizations that have been doing the work in community for years and who have knowledge and who have had success, but it hasn't been scalable success, to the grass tips, as we call them, to the office of the mayor, the office of the governor, and everything in between, our educators, our parents, our students, our residents, our business owners. It takes that entire community to move an activation into a transformation. And it's exciting, it's daunting, it is educational. I mentioned that I've been in nonprofit for more than 20 years, and I used to say that I worked in health and human services, but until I actually started working in healthcare, I didn't work in health. I worked right up to the door of health in human services. I would say that this past 6 months has been the most transformational for me. The most educational. It has made me question everything about my work, my mission, my personal life. My husband and I, right there. Everybody's mentioned their spouses, so I figured I better do that. I know. And I made him go get the Blue Zones bag. I have some happies, some of the Dan Buettner's latest books. Got to stick around. But where was I going, Angelo? I locked eyes with you and transformation. Yes, yes. Our wine at 5 on Fridays has gotten a little more like controversial. It's gotten a little more deep, so much more deeply rooted, so much more. You know, from the inside out. So I brought this book up here just as an example. This is great. This is the result of a lot of incredible work. More than 15 experts, and like I said, 250 individuals are named in this report from Greater South Phoenix. The report is basically our opportunity to move into the next stage. It talks about the background by sector. So when we talk about the Power 9, we also, as part of this process, we're identifying sectors. The study of health equity, work sites, education in schools, civic, faith-based, and again, I keep looking at you, that faith-based piece is just so incredibly important, and I think it probably covers at least 3 or 4 of our Power 9, if you will. And faith is everywhere, and I think you did a wonderful job of demonstrating that. But again, the reason I'm spending so much time talking about the community of Greater South Phoenix and the people of Greater South Phoenix is it doesn't matter how well educated those experts are. It doesn't matter how big this report is. What matters is what will they support? Did we get it right? When we look at, so far, the sectors that have bubbled to the top for this particular community are health equity and food environment. And those are the 2 out of the 12 sectors, let's say, those are the 2 that for this particular community, we have found, based on what's in the report, are the 2 areas where there is the greatest opportunity. Our job right now, and we are looking at the first week of December and going out into community and launching a series of community conversations amplifying community voices. And there will be 6 different meetings that we will have in-person kind of town hall sessions, if you will, focused on sectors. Our entire stakeholder list and the public, if you will, it will be open for them to come. We will present on that particular sector, and then we will stop presenting, and we will ask those community members, how did we do? Are we close? Did we get it right? What did we miss? Do you agree with the strengths? Are we close with the opportunities? What will you get behind? What might you be willing to champion? And how would you like to move this forward? And you have a room full of champions already, I feel like, right here. So it just gives me great hope for, should NAU and the City of Flagstaff and some of our amazing stakeholders and community champions choose to formalize your relationship with Dan Buettner Sr., you're already ahead of the game. And I have to commend you for that. And I'll wrap up just by saying the first time Dr. Sutliff and I talked, it was by Zoom, and I asked him, so where did this all start? And he pulled out did you bring your National Geographic? Oh, there it is. You have to hold it up and show them. So I spoke to my counterparts at Blue Zones and told them this story that I asked, when did this begin? And he pulled up that National Geographic edition that was, I believe, the first really big published story by Dan Buettner Sr. And I have a reprint in my office. It's glossy and shiny, and the binding hasn't even been cracked. That copy right there is dog-eared. It has been used and abused. I'm sure there's sticky notes in there. And so I have referred to you. I emailed Danny this morning, and he's ready to bring Blue Zones to Flagstaff. So there you go.
Perfect, Debbie. I want you to touch on one more thing about the long life expectancy in your zip code. You talked about, can you just close with that?
Yes.
And then we'll go to the Q&A.
Sure. So I think one of the easiest ways to get the attention when discussing Blue Zones and why Greater South Phoenix is the community that really is in need of some love, some attention, access. There are other communities in Maricopa County that are getting some love. They're getting some funding. They're getting some attention. These zip codes have not. In South Phoenix, the life expectancy is 14 years less than that of someone in Scottsdale. And after the pandemic, and you can probably back me up on this, the communities of color, persons of color, communities of color were affected in a much more disproportionate way. And for Hispanic and Black Americans, they lost an additional 3 years of life. So now that gap is 17 years. So if we say a generation is 10 years, well, why is a daughter of South Phoenix going to miss almost 2 generations of life, yet a daughter of Scottsdale won't? Why is that? And what can we do to change that? And why aren't more of us aware of it? And it's not just, and I'll say this has been one of those things. I've worked with community a lot. I've lived in a community like Greater South Phoenix. Our children went to school, a tiny little Catholic school in, inner city Phoenix, that Sunny Slope. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Sunny Slope, but it gets a bad rap, doesn't it? Sunny Slope does it really, and at times, rightfully so. But, John McCain lived on this corner. There might have been a crack house on the corner across from him, but, Sunny Slope, an amazing community. I worked in Maryvale, and now Greater South Phoenix. There is just no reason for those communities to be overlooked. And that life expectancy, the difference in life expectancy is shocking, and it's something that we can, those of us who can bring resource, should.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So, ironically, when I posted the picture of getting a book autographed by Dan Buettner Sr., a friend of mine in Grand Forks, North Dakota said, we just launched the Blue Zones in my hometown. Of all places, of Grand Forks, North Dakota. We can do it here. So we have faith-based, we have medical, we have nonprofit foundation, we have the Navajo Nation represented here. Questions, conversations, interaction? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and Jen, we've got a statewide from an economic perspective as well.
Oh, and then Jen is online right here. And so we have all these different, how do we tie this together? Questions, feedback. Jen's now back on here. Okay, so you can see her. We had her hidden there. Sorry, Jen. You were hidden there for a minute.
I'm enormous. You can't miss me now. My goodness.
Okay. Comments, questions, feedback.
There's a couple hands that started to go up.
Go right over here.
Hi, how you doing? I just got a question for you. We're just talking about South Phoenix and all. Like what does it look like to accomplish this and to go into the community? Because that's awesome that you have a heart for that. That is amazing.
It's a big lift, but what it starts with is what you just said. Thank you for that. It starts with heart. It starts with intention. It starts with humility. Personally speaking, it starts with money. Absolutely. It starts with fundraising. It starts with, it could have started much like this. But the way that it started in Greater South Phoenix was, there definitely is. So when Dan Buettner started out on his research, his global research and studying longevity, they're going to find the fountain of youth. Obviously, that was the goal. Well, he didn't find the fountain of youth, but what he found was some of the greatest knowledge from some of the oldest cultures that he's a smart guy. He decided, why can't we bring this back to the United States? Why can't we take these characteristics that have been identified from these original blue zones and kind of create a model, a blueprint by which we can take it to community? So we are community number 70. They're now, I believe, spoke with them yesterday. They're lifting 6 different cities in 1 county in California in the beginning of December. So I think they're headed towards mid-70s as far as communities that are in some stage of assessment, activation, transformation. It starts with getting to the community experts. I mean, that's really what it's about. And yes, there is a prescribed protocol, there's a process, there's a whole blueprint, there's menus, policy menus, but it starts with assessment, that scary word, but really more asset mapping, discovery. What's great about the community? What's happening in the community? Who lives in the community? Who are our community champions? And then what might also be the struggles, the challenges? Where are the gaps? And then taking that information, that asset mapping, if you will, and from those best practices, from some 70+ communities, and from our original 5 blue zones, and more than 20 years of research at this point, continuing to move forward within, and it's equally within the prescribed protocol and process and blueprint, but it's at the pace of community, the speed of trust. So it's one-on-one stakeholder meetings, it's community sessions, it's focus groups, it's larger, you know, the keynote presentation was at the Joan and Ray Kroc Center, Salvation Army Kroc Center. So it held about 300 people, so that's where we kicked off. You're welcome.
I have 2 questions, actually. One of them is for that South Phoenix project. Who initiated that? Was that something that came from the community, or was that something that came from a different organization?
That's a good question. So Equality Health Foundation is the lead convener, meaning we have fiscal responsibility for the primary fundraising. I would say about 90% of the fundraising has been an Equality Health Foundation responsibility. We are the lead convener.
Are you a member of that community? Is that what kind of
Greater South Phoenix?
Yeah, is that what drove you to do that program?
No, I'm not a member of the community. No, I'm not. But I have been a member of another community, Sunny Slope, that is much like Greater South Phoenix. This was a professional opportunity for me that took me from, I worked for a university in Phoenix for a time. Much different, purple, a little purpley as opposed to blue. Yes, I'm sorry. It would be worse if we were at the other university in Phoenix right now and I said that I had worked there. But it was
I'm just
a professional
curious, I guess, because we have some pushback sometimes. You know, when the initiative is not coming from somebody who's already a member of the community, it's such a wonderful idea. There's no doubt about that. But what is the community saying? What are they expressing as their needs and desires and heart for this?
And that's what we are learning right now.
Yeah.
So we know what we have seen to date. There's a lot of support. There is, as far as our funding partners at that level, we have 7 funding partners. Our 2 lead funding partners are United Healthcare and Valley of the Sun United Way. And then we have Virginia Piper Trust, the Flynn Foundation. We have a steering committee comprised of about 12 individuals. Now I'm going to go back to your original question. None of those individuals, for the most part, reside in Greater South Phoenix. So you have an incredible initiative with proven opportunity, but why does Greater South Phoenix care? And that is what we have encountered both with enthusiasm, especially when you talk about outcomes, how you can tie outcomes to decrease in emergency room admissions, decrease in obesity, tobacco cessation. There are a lot of outcomes that you can tie it to, but again, what does that mean to me? And frankly, why do I want to live longer? My life is really hard. my life is really hard. Why would I want to live longer? So we have been met with enthusiasm, interest. We have, again, champions, created champions, and they have introduced us to groups and individuals that may be a little more reticent. And we also have one or two groups that we're working to build trust with. Trust was not assumed. You cannot go into community work and assume that you'll be trusted. Trust has to be earned, and we absolutely are working through those conversations and those concerns and learning. And like I said, having taken just the word expert and assessment out of our lexicon, we did that because of what community told us. Thank you. That's very insightful.
And I didn't mean that to be something that was sparking any division. It's just a real, it's an important question, I guess, whenever we go in and want to help somebody else, is what are they asking for? I had one more quick question, and this was actually for the rest of the panel. I loved the point of purpose. And I also noticed, as Tony brought up the question about service within a community, and I'm wondering if there's any research that connects purpose with service. What is the quality of the purpose in our lives? Is it service motivated? And is there anything that's showing that connection?
Well, in the Navajo, that's part of our teaching, but because of acculturation, a lot of people have lost that way. There's a lot of, let me put it this way, there are families that are still fully immersed in the tradition, but then you have a family next door that have completely lost their language, their stories, their elders, In the Navajo way, you're supposed to have wisdom in your family. You're supposed to have a wise person. You're supposed to have ceremony, prayer, somebody to teach, roles of uncles. Everybody has a role, clanship roles. Clanship teaches you service, responsibility to the clan. That was a structure that was created over thousands of years ago. Even in design of a hogan, it was designed over thousands of years as the best way to live, so you can share knowledge and create happiness. There's a female side, there's a male side, there's a medicine man side. There's you're always greeting the sun in the morning. There's thousands of years, but we've wandered from that, and then people don't understand why anymore. So that I feel like that's all those teachings teach service. It's the way you're supposed to be. But we're losing that, and that's why that's what we're trying to reinstill that.
Is that part of the Blue Zone philosophy, though? Is there something with the purpose and service connection? Because you hear purpose, but I'm very much motivated by service, of giving and serving others, and I'm thinking, what's the value of your purpose if it's not to contribute to others? And I wonder if Blue Zone addresses that.
Well, and I'll pass it along, but the best quote I've ever heard came from Dr. Randy Gibb, the dean, now the provost of Grand Canyon University. If you want to be a leader, start by serving. And when we go back to the moai, the idea of a moai, it is based in, and forgive me, I'm not sure, I believe it was in Okinawa, that the tradition is in these indigenous tribal communities that when you are born, you become part of a cohort, if you will, a tribe. And those are your peers that are your age, that from the moment you come into the community as a new member, you're raised together, and you're raised to lean on one another, and you're raised to look out for one another. And that spiritual, physical, social support is service to others, and it is purpose, and it all embodies, I think, both purpose and service kind of go hand in hand a little bit. And when it comes to actually the practicalities of a Blue Zones activation, transformation, it takes an entire community being part of that, serving that goal to transform community, to build generational wealth, to build upon nutrition and well-being and access and movement. And I'm going to pass this along so you two can talk a little bit.
I mean, I don't know per se, Christina, you know, the blue zones. I haven't read anything in there about that connection, but I would say very similarly that just by the nature and the virtue of that community and people belonging, and also the fact that you have multi-generations living in the community together, right there, everybody's taking part, right? Everybody's doing their role that works for them at that time in their life. And the other part about purpose is your purpose can change over your lifetime. It does. I hope it changes over your lifetime. It should change. And I think part of that is encompassing that community, encompassing the different roles, and that everybody's acting and working together sort of for the same thing. I feel like that's what makes a blue zone what it is.
I think that's amazing on all of them. And I said earlier, everybody's a leader to some capacity, and we put it like this: if serving is beneath you, leadership is beyond you. You should not ever want to lead farther than you can serve. And so every great leader that we've ever seen was usually a very great servant, from Jesus to any national, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. You could think of the greatest leaders ever, and they were usually incredible at serving. And so serving is connected to that, and I think that if you look in any company, number one, everybody serves. We all serve somebody else. Everybody does. We serve a different company, we serve an organization, we serve a business, we serve a family, we serve somebody, and to what degree determines, really where we stand, because some of the greatest servants, if you're serving somebody else's dream and somebody else's business, man, they're going to excel, they're going to thrive, and what are they doing? They're discovering their purpose, and so they're finding out, man, I'm really good in this lane. Why? Because I'm serving somebody else. I'm serving their thing, and then you start kind of honing in on not only their purpose, but your purpose, and purpose and serving do go hand in hand. What I've seen in my lifetime, and I'm young. I am not going to say I'm not even close to that, but I would say that definitely those two go hand in hand, and you definitely have to do that whenever it comes to impacting a community. You'll never get farther than you can serve one another, and if you can do that, if we can do that, if we can start with just a handful of people, I think that's one of the reasons why these organizations, our church, is thriving, is because we serve somebody else. And to your question, how do we impact faith and connect the two? I've thought about that ever since you asked that. But I would say great questions. I'm sorry to keep talking here. Hand it back.
I'm going to make one comment on this, and then we're going to go back to Jenna to see if, Jenna, you have a closing comment. So I just want to say, when I was at the Activate South Phoenix project, most of the speakers that day were the superintendent of schools, chief of police, the mayor, and there was a city council person. And who was that hero guy? He had that hero program. Or
Darren Chapman, Tiger Mountain Foundation.
So even though it's the nonprofits that come in to build that structure of support, it was, I felt like it was the people who lived in the community were 100%, you kind of facilitated to get them together. And it was the people from the community who looked to me, when I went away from there, were driving it. You were providing the support, but they were driving it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we have led with that specifically. This is about, it is about the community, by the community, for the community.
Okay. Okay, Jenna, we have to turn off our microphone and turn yours up, so just give us a second. Closing comments, thoughts on what's been presented here? How does this all fit together in your mind?
Yeah, I just want to stress that I've learned a lot tonight, so thank you for having me be a part of it. I think what's so important to that last question, I just wanted to share, we do a lot with entrepreneurs and a lot of immigrant entrepreneurs and Spanish language entrepreneurs, and they have to develop a business plan in order to get capital, right, and grow their businesses. And that means they have to have a mission statement. And I will just tell you, we don't often hear that my mission statement is to make myself rich, right? You will hear to feed and take care of my family and put the next generation on a different trajectory. So they're already in service to their family with their dream of a business. And then we have a second program called Nivel Ejecutivo, that the businesses that start to earn $1 million or more in revenue, come back into the program and mentor and go on to grow their own business, and will revisit their mission statement at that point. And it didn't change. It, in fact, skews more towards service, to say, now that I've been this successful, the purpose of my business is to do more for others, whether it's the customers they serve or fellow entrepreneurs. So we do see that success is tied to service and to having a meaningful purpose that people can rally behind. And when we do community convenings and community-led strategies, if the purpose isn't right, it's one of the first things you try to get unity around, then oftentimes the efforts don't get far, or resources can be squandered because it's just not unified around something impactful and meaningful. So it was a great question. I think a great way to close. I just want to say it's about integration. It's about collaboration. And I do think Blue Zones give us a wonderful set of tools and thinking and philosophies for how we all fit together and advance things for our greater good. So thank you again for having us here as Local First.
So even though we're going to wrap up tonight, hopefully this is just the beginning of the next step. We want to thank the Arizona Biomedical Research Center for sponsoring this, along with NAU's Southwest Health Equity Research Center for providing this workshop. And Dr. Palmer shared there's 4 more workshops you can attend, whether it's in person or virtual. But I want to challenge you, leave you with a challenge, and I'm going to steal something from my brother Teo right here, he came to our last monthly plant-based meetup, which you can all come to. It's going to be a Friendsgiving on November 14th, community-wide, building the community. Plant your own blue bubble. Is that your term?
Wherever you go, it's a mindset, and you take it. You can go to any of these places, and I've been to one of them, but in your mind and in your body and in your spirit and in your actions, if you go to those places and you leave with what you learn, you take it anywhere you go.
Okay.
And that's why a blue shirt helps.
So be a Blue Zone. Take care of yourself so then you can serve your community, whether it's going to be the Flagstaff Family Food Center, whether it's going to be a faith-based organization, whatever it is. And maybe you're going to be inspired to maybe do research. We joke about the research and these journal articles that nobody reads, but it's that data that drives and really solidifies what we're doing. And then maybe you want to get involved in a research project. Maybe you want to get involved in community, or maybe in some policy. So I want to challenge you with that. Keep your eyes and ears open. You're going to get a questionnaire to give us some feedback on how this went. You can give us a score on our food if you'd like to. You can steal our recipes. Come on in here. Come on in. Both of you, come on in. This, in front of Chef Mark, this is Blue Zone Chloe. Born. Talking about spouses. Here it is. And Chef Mark. So they put together with the team of students that probably went home to study.
They're already sleeping.
They went home. They went to this is our chefs for tonight, and they coordinated this food. Hopefully this is starting something bigger. This is what we're hoping.
Yes.
Closing comments?
Closing comments, maybe just, as you think about your food choices when you're going to whether you're planting seeds or going to the store, however you're engaging with your food, just, bring a little bit more awareness to why you're selecting that, and see how that fits into your lifestyle, into the seasonality aspects of it. See how you feel after you eat something. I think that for a lot of us, we just mindlessly eat. And so I'm going to pass this to Blue Zone Chloe right in a minute. But the last thing I want to leave you with is, after this event, you should never eat again. And I tell this to our students. After this, you're never eating again. From now on, you're tasting. Yes. And so it really switches kind of how you approach and look at what am I putting inside my body. So that's my last little piece. Blue Zone Chloe.
About Blue Zone or anything, and then do that, if you have any comments. Okay. Wrap it up.
All right. Well, as Dr. Sutliff has mentioned, I grew up in a Blue Zone. I was actually born at Loma Linda Sanitarium, so that dates me a little bit. But I don't know, growing up there, you take things for granted. And so once I moved away, and especially once I came to Flagstaff, I've always grown a garden. That was just kind of my thing that I had always done all my life. I grew up with it, and coming here has been a real learning experience. So, 7,000 feet, right? Yeah, 7,000 feet has made a difference. But anyway, have you enjoyed the evening? Yes. All right, that is great. Well, we want you to keep on enjoying the evening for just a little bit longer, so we want to send home a taste with you this evening. This is our dessert for you to take home, and be sure and pick one up as you go out. This is a chia seed pudding, and so it's made with chia seeds, which are very high in fiber, and we all know how good fiber is for us. And then it is made with some almond milk, so there's nuts in there, good protein, and also maple syrup, which, interestingly enough, on the glycemic index, if I can say that right, maple syrup is quite low. So we sweetened it with maple syrup. So please take this home and keep on enjoying the evening this evening.
All right, thank you. All right. Thank you. Do you have something to close it up?
One final note, if you park in the parking garage and you haven't gotten the parking pass, it's a little code. See me at the front desk and I'll give that to you. Even if you put your credit card in there to get in there, you just put the code followed by a pound sign, and you don't have to pay for parking.
All right. We're going to mingle a little bit. The speakers will stick around a little bit, but enjoy the evening and pick up your dessert on the way out. Thank you for coming.